And we're back. We're back. The Vodkast has finally returned. The people had waited long enough, and now we have finally returned. In fact, the king, Yugopnik, has returned. Hugo, how are you getting on?
I'm getting on very well, thank you very much. But never call me king again, or I will have to cut my own head off.
I can't believe
Because
I called you king there, especially I've got my Republican colours on today and the lovely little image that everyone can see here on the screen. By the way, Hugo, check that out. I spent
oh
hours
yeah, I fucking
working
love
on
it.
this.
That oh
You
my
see
god,
the
and the
flowing,
water is actually moving.
the water is
The
moving,
water is actually
looping
moving.
infinitely. Yeah. And I'm like looking
That is
lovingly.
lovely. That is lovely.
Yeah, so
But how you been doing, King? Tell me about life.
king for the Republic. No, I've been good. Life's been good. Things chilled out. I was really trying to figure out what to do with the channel for a while there, and so I just didn't even do any streams. I just took a lot of time off figuring out like what was actually working on the channel, what wasn't working. And what happened was that before, I think it was like March, April, I was starting to get a little bit burnt out because I was just doing a lot. I was making short videos, I was doing streams, I was doing this and doing that, and I ended up having kind of like a divided audience. One audience who wanted to see like live streams and long form content like this, and then one audience who wanted to see short educational videos and video essays and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so what happened was basically the YouTube algorithm would identify both those audiences, and it would see that from my subscribers that only half of the people for either set of those, whether I was releasing like a live stream or whether I was releasing a short video, only half of them would actually click into it, and so that would tell the algorithm that only not that many people are interested in this, and so it just wouldn't share it around. So it kind of killed me in the algorithm. But pretty much since I focused just on the videos, the sort of educational socialism 101 videos and the I suppose semi-theory video essays that I've been doing quite recently, since I focused
Yeah,
more.
they're really good.
Thanks for saying that, but it really worked. It made a big difference in terms of like the views. It really helped things to grow a lot quicker. And so I just decided, okay, fuck it, let's just create a separate channel then for streaming and for hanging out and having fun and drinking and chilling with people. And so yeah, here we are. I was kind of burnt out, to be honest. I've been kind of at that time I was just kind of like, all right, I need a break. I need to fucking cool off for a little while. And yeah, so this is why I'm here. Having a drink. Here I am I've got a beer, and yeah, what can I say? It's great to be here. It's great to be here. It's great to
on the
be
beer
back.
on the beer part. Very pathetic.
Pathetic.
But, yes. Please
okay, let me
continue.
just say, I want to put this to the people. Because you call me king, and I'm not. This is anti-monarchist hours. Okay, we're against all that shit. I'm going to put it to the people. I'm going to let the people decide. Okay, so two choices. I've got vodka. I've actually got a big, massive bottle of vodka beside me here, and I've also got a load of Desperados beside me. Okay, so I'm going to let the people in the chat decide. All right, people in the chat. Okay. If you want me to drink vodka, and I will, I'll go with this, just write vodka into the live chat. Just type it in, okay? And if you want me to continue drinking beer, my Desperados, and having a good chill time with that, just type in up the ra, okay? Up the ra. And that way I'll know what to do. So I'll reevaluate in a couple of minutes, and we'll see. So vodka or up the ra. we can
I mean, I will win because I will continuously spam chat. And
shit, and you got mod
there
skills.
we go. Everyone is supporting me. Hey,
fuck.
Hope your girlfriend is not in the chat because she'll probably be the only one spamming beer constantly. So
Oh, okay, all right.
she probably knows how you can get.
Oh, I see there. I see a lot of up the raz in there. All right, well, okay, you hear that? That's the bottle. That's the bottle of vodka. It's the lid coming off. Oh fuck!
Very nice.
Tomorrow's gonna be right off. Shit. All right. Well, a lot of people want me to.
When you get used to it, the booze flows through you, not in you. You know what I mean? But
tell me how you.
Yeah, no, I completely feel you when it comes to the burnout or wherever. I had a few instances with that myself.
Yeah.
Started a new job, what feels like, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, but what feels like 7-8 years ago at this point. I work directly for Americans, so you can imagine my fucking pain. The fucking Yanks are not the greatest of employers, but there's a few good people, so I can't complain. And being overworked there kind of fucked with my process of creativity, if you want to call it that, and creating new videos. And I think I chatted with you at one point, and you gave me some very good advice, which I always appreciate, and I really do consider you a close friend.
With streams and stuff, yeah. because
And
that can
not
really
not just
kill
that, but when
kill a channel.
I wrote to you about the burnout, etc., etc. But you gave me really good advice on the streams as well. And I don't know why, like YouTube doesn't just have the option to like segment your channel into a stream and
Yeah.
upload channel. They probably will do it at some point. Like it makes business sense as well.
Mm.
Like from a capitalist perspective, it absolutely does
Yeah,
because
of course.
you are basically getting content creators to make as much stuff as possible, and you're competing with Twitch, which, let's be honest, has taken quite a chunk out of out of YouTube itself.
Mm. Mm.
It's very weird that YouTube even introduced streaming as an option and then started punishing channels for actively streaming while putting out other types of content. It's fucking stupid. But then
Yeah.
again, the algorithm changes literally every 3-4 months. So maybe in like a year, that's going to be the go-to thing to do. Kind of a fucking you know Russian roulette with this thing. You really don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And
Spin the
sometimes
wheel,
I
let's say.
input pr- probably it's the same case with you, but sometimes I put in like I don't know fucking 200 hours in a video and it fucking flops. And then I make some shit for like 20 hours or something, 25, the shit that I've already have information on or whatever that I've already read about, and the video fucking explodes. Yeah, there's just the quality, the market, and most importantly, what the algorithm thinks it should put in front of eyeballs is so fucking random that anybody considering YouTube just keep that in mind. Get
Yep.
sad. Oh my god, this thing is not getting views. It's okay. Sometimes it's because of you, because maybe you did not create the smartest or coolest or brightest shit in the book. But then when you look at fucking I don't know creators like Tim Pool who get fucking I don't know hundreds of thousands of literally the guy is just saying shit that he just heard on Fox News. It tells you that quality does not always lead to quantity of views. So yeah, don't get depressed or whatever over that.
Yeah, it's a really really good point for anyone who's interested in this sort of stuff. A lot of it is just luck. I mean, I've never actually had this experience, excuse me, of having like any kind of video get picked up by the algorithm and like explode and I don't know go viral or anything. I've never had that experience ever. The only time I ever have success with videos is when people actually share them around, and like it's very much a grassroots. Like I can actually see people sharing these things around. I've never ever had this experience of getting like 10 or 20,000 views just out of nowhere because the algorithm's been recommending it to people. So yeah, and especially if you're making like Marxist content and stuff like that, you're really, you're not you're not exactly making yourself very algo friendly by doing this kind of stuff. So it's very. I don't know how you fucking you have. I don't know. You seem to have gotten around the algorithm. I don't know. You've got some tips or tricks or some sort of hacks, but even very controversial videos. And I think that they've been some of your most successful and most popular. Like for example, your aesthetics of fascism videos. They exploded.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah, the first one especially. Thank you, but that was very surprising in the beginning. But in retrospective, I think what I did there is basically create something that YouTube flagged as a documentary slash educational video
mm,
and not as news slash politics. And it was about Nazi Germany, World War II, etc., etc. Even though like the second half of the video is a Marxist analysis
mm,
of the Third Reich and less a just quote unquote unbiased, typical mainstream analysis of the Nazis and their uniforms by themselves. But the algorithm recognized it as like a historical mini show or whatever. So it
that
felt
makes
like it could
sense.
show it to the most mainstream of people and that it is extremely advertiser friendly, even though it's literally talking about Nazis. But then you make a video like I don't fucking know talking about any other topic that is very loosely correlated to an ideology,
Mm,
and you are talking about a philosophical topic, and then it's again a gamble. Is it going to trigger it as an educational one or as one that talks about politics slash news? Probably if you make a video talking about Aristotle or Socrates or Baudrillard or somebody, uh, even though those are all extremely political individuals with very political ways of thought, because everything is political, the algorithm is not going to put you probably in that category. But when you do Marx, when it hears Bakunin, when it
Mm.
hears Mao, when it hears Lenin, oh my fucking god,
Freaks out.
it immediately l- groups you together with other thousands of videos, very socialist videos online, and it says, okay, up until now these have been proven not to be very profitable for our platform, therefore we shall flag them as non-advertiser friendly, be it very directly, and they give you the little yellow sign, or they still give you the green sign but they still don't show the fucking video to anybody. So yeah, it's all about the algorithm recognizing you as something that's good for the advertisers or not.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely, and it's just a total gamble, you know. By the way, I do want to give a little shout out to all the comrades in the chat there. Thanks very much for being here. Sorry, we didn't do like an introduction. It's good to see you as well. I see a lot of familiar faces. Well, familiar faces, familiar usernames, I suppose. I see Southern Comrade, Gatheists, Aryan Gay, Falcon General. Good to see you. I hope you're all keeping well. We will be taking questions throughout this, so just make sure to type at Marxist Paul Live. And then I'll see your question. We'll take that down. We'll write that down, and then we'll talk about the questions as we go through this. And also, if you wouldn't mind just giving this a little share around, as you can all see, this is a new channel, so it doesn't have very many subscribers. So if you wouldn't mind just giving a little share around on Twitter, Discord, if you're on Discord, Reddit, any form of social media you're on, please give it a little share around. And if you can, give it a little shout out. That would really, really help things out.
And if you're not currently subscribed, then what the fuck are you doing? It's literally a
What are you
fucking
doing?
button, Jesus fucking Christ. Yes. And hi everyone as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there's a little gate on the chat here. I think you need to be on this channel. You need to be subscribed before you can actually speak in the chat. So yeah, that'll hopefully weed out some of the trolls, I suppose. You know.
I don't know if you're noticing, because guys, before the call started, Jesus, I'm so fucking corporatized. Before the live stream started, me and Paul were talking about how impossibly difficult it is to set up the chat box to be, playing from the right corner. And now, for some reason, it's just some random specific
What the fuck
messages are popping up. I don't know if you noticed, Paul.
I know, it just little random messages seem to be appearing here and there. That's Streamlabs OBS for you. I don't know, and it's in the wrong place as well. Like I've got it set up in the streaming software in Streamlabs OBS so that it should appear starting from the top at the top right hand corner. And it seems to be starting at the bottom, from the bottom right hand corner, and it doesn't seem to be going up all the way. It's a mess. I don't know what stars with that, but anyway, they're there. We're just gonna have to deal with it. I can turn them off. You want me to turn them off? If they're
No. I find them cute actually. It kind of gives an interesting vibe.
Yeah, interesting is a nice way of describing it. All right. Thank you very much, Hugo. Let's see. Let's have a little look at the chat here. By the way, Carlos Herrera, how are you getting on, comrade? It's good to see you. Okay, so there's a few different questions here. Let me just write these down and make sure we get them. I see a great question about CPI, Maoist, and all that, who I love talking about. But we'll get through a couple of them. We have a couple of sort of, I suppose, safety net topics sitting in the back here, in case there's kind of a lull. But we generally will be doing Q&As throughout this, just relaxing, taking it easy, having a few drinks, and having some fun. One of the questions that came up first here, and I actually can't answer the question directly, and I'm going to explain why. It's from Marxism, Arism, I'm not sure. Paul, which communist organizations are you a part of, if any? So I don't talk about that stuff anymore. You know, people who have watched my stuff for a long time will know that I used to speak very openly about being a member of the CPI and the Connolly Youth Movement, Communist Party of Ireland Connolly Youth Movement, and that whole disaffiliation between the organizations was pretty much documented on the main channel. And so I spoke about that a little bit there, and I used to speak quite openly about these things. But that's a pretty bad idea in general, just in terms of operational security. You really shouldn't talk about organizations that you're affiliated with. It's just not safe in terms of the state forces who do monitor these kinds of things, state forces and also fascist forces. You know, it's really important that people keep this in mind. People may not even realize this sort of thing, but if you say you're associated or affiliated with this or that organization, then somebody just all somebody needs to do is look up that organization, and they can very easily find you. You know, they can actually they can find where pretty much where you're going to be, and it's really unsafe, and it's definitely not what people who are sincerely interested in revolution and who are interested in socialism and communism should be doing. So I don't talk about that sort of stuff anymore. And I would recommend that other people don't. Hugo, did you have any thoughts on that, or did you want to say anything about that?
I will agree with you completely. One could make the argument that once you're completely out in the open and you make your entire living, or at least your everything that you have found a way in order to live off of being a political activist, uh, and you have become kind of a public figure, then I guess sure you can openly state it, etc., because it's eventually going to be found out. So you might as well kind of put it out there. But when you're just starting up, or when people, more importantly, like in Paul's case, kind of know where you're from, they know that you're from Ireland. Probably a lot of people know what city, town,
Oh yeah.
village you're from, etc., etc. And most importantly, when a given movement that you are a part of is not the most powerful one, if we can say that, in the country, and when you know there's a lot of reactionaries, as Paul said, which can do very interesting things to your life, then you might not want to go into that direction for sure. I agree. Yeah, that's why I honestly, that's the reason I never like openly and directly said exactly what organizations I was a part of, just kind of what they do and in what direction they're at. But even then, I was relatively conservative in my uh, how open I am about discussing it.
Yeah,
Because
you
like
have to be.
countries like ours, okay, Ireland is a bit, let's call it. I know this is a disgusting term, no communist should ever use, but Ireland is a bit more civilized than the
Ah.
Balkans. I'm kidding, no, it's not. But we're equally degenerate, alcoholic imbeciles. But
West
it's
West Slavs over here.
exactly. And nowadays, the 2020s, there's not as many reactionaries over here, obviously, as there was in the 90s. But for sure, like if you are an open communist and an open supporter of, oh God forbid, oh my God, revolution, then you might actually get the state on your door, or arguably even worse, reactionaries that are very willing to inflict pain and physical violence, because they know that the state will have their back. And when it
Yeah,
comes to like,
yeah,
okay, I'll just finish with this. There is one particular country, Poland, in which
yeah.
quite literally, if you openly state that you're a communist, they will give you monetary fines, and if you continue doing it, even imprisonment, because being a communist or spreading communist ideals is considered, ironically, kind of a hate crime slash supporting anti-constitutional organizations, etc., etc. So if it can happen in this EU state, it can happen in most countries around the world. So be careful, because you don't know what kind of policy they're going to introduce in 5 years, and
Yeah.
then put you on one list or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. In Ireland, actually, in Ireland, we're grand. Talking about communism is fine. You can talk about communism, talk about Marxism, talk about protracted people's war if you want. People don't give a fuck. They lose their mind if you talk about republicanism. They go fucking ballistic. And yeah, there's a lot of Republican prisoners as a result here in Ireland. A lot of Republican political prisoners. Uh,
Oh yeah, that must be an even bigger trigger. Yeah, fuck, I keep
yeah,
forgetting that about your case specifically.
yeah, it's
Yeah, because they
kind of weird.
immediately identify it with like
With
active
physical
violent
force.
action,
Yeah.
physical force.
So that's why.
That must be tough.
Yeah, whereas most of the kind of dominant currents, when they think of like communism, they generally think of pretty much social democrats with red flag. Unfortunately, they don't really think of it as being like this an actual threat. They think, but they do think of republicanism as the actual threat. And that's very much a reflection like of the material condition of Ireland. In Ireland, the principal contradiction actually is the national question. It is between imperialism and the oppressed nation, rather than just the standard capitalist versus proletariat contradiction. So it's reflected there. People are willing to engage in militant activity with regard to republicanism much more quickly than they will be willing to radicalize around communism. So you need to be quite careful whenever you're talking about that sort of stuff. That little picture actually that I'm using right now probably isn't good. Probably doesn't look too good in that regard.
Why? It's
anyway.
just three British soldiers relaxing on a beautiful British river, waiting for the Queen to pass by so they can bow and say that they love her and long may she reign. I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't even joke.
I don't know why one of the characters is wearing some Irish looking stuff, but that's because he's a English spy operating on Irish soil. So
he infiltrated. He's an infiltrator. He's a British infiltrator of the Irish Republican movement, and so he has to really play it up to fit in. Don't mind this little hammering signal just there.
It's interesting how the national question kind of comes, as you said before, even the question of the economic system in Ireland. The reason I'm saying it's interesting is because in different parts of the world, obviously, like revolutionary thought manifests in different ways.
Yeah.
And what I noticed specifically, for example, in the Balkans, and the Western Balkans, where Yugoslavia used to exist, defining yourself as a socialist or communist or whatever the fuck, is seen as you being a supporter of an internationalist movement which existed before. What does this mean? When you define yourself as a communist, the first thing that goes through people's minds, those who have a negative reaction, isn't necessarily like the economic policies, etc., but it's you are against our nation state. You are against Croatia existing, Bosnia existing, Serbia existing, whatever. And you are for this past internationalist state which, and it's always the different countries that say it influenced them the most, which destroyed Croatia the most, which destroyed Serbia the most, which destroyed Bosnia the most. For some reason, every single one of these 7 fucking nowadays banana republics that mean absolutely fucking nothing are saying, oh, Yugoslavia was built on our back, and now you want to go back there and again, let the other republics leech off of you, etc., etc. Yeah, it's kind of a different sort of approach where being a communist makes you non-Serbian, non-Croat, non-Montenegrin or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting how that manifests. I think it's really important that people understand when it comes to, if you want to understand Ireland, you need to understand colonialism, and you need to understand over 800 years of colonial genocide and famine and starvation and displacement and dispossession and penal laws and just horrific, over 800 years of horrific shit happening. And you need to always place the nationalism of Ireland in the context of anti-colonialism, because that's what it is. And that's why the nationalism and the republicanism in Ireland took this very left-wing turn, whereas, for example, the republicanism in other countries, in France and stuff like that, it was just liberal, it was just liberalism and very bourgeois, and it didn't really go any further than that. Whereas even if you trace back republicanism to its roots in Ireland in 1798, it was always rooted amongst the lowest sections of society. It was always this anti-colonial movement. Karl Marx himself actually said that was the defining feature of the Fenian movement, was that it only took root among the lowest sections of society. And at that time he was talking about, of course, the peasantry and the sort of new developing proletariat, the lower peasantry, because there wasn't. Exactly. So the national particularities probably don't really square with the international context, because in the international context, when you hear about like republicanism, it means a very different thing to what it means here. And of course, like in Ireland, when we talk about Irish republicanism, We're actually talking about the Irish Republic that was proclaimed in 1918, which is a very socialistic republic that was proclaimed. And you can read its 1919 democratic program, where it like pledges support to the international working classes. Support to the international working class movement. It didn't say the communist movement. It said the international working class movement for the development of I can't remember. It said the social life or something like that of everyone. But basically, it was support for the socialist movement. Of course, it declares public ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. And the way it worded it, it phrased it was all of the wealth and wealth producing processes of this country are to be held in common by the people of this country. So like when we talk about republicanism here, that's to say you're an Irish Republican means that you support and uphold the Irish Republic of 1918. And unfortunately, that Irish Republic was actually destroyed by counter-revolutionaries in 1922. And so that completely, now we have this bourgeois free state carnival of reaction, very reactionary, I suppose, collaborator with imperialism. The governments that we have today, it's very much a collaborator with imperialism and facilitates the looting and plundering of this country and countries all over the world. For example, facilitating Shannon Airport and planes stopping off to refuel and fill up before they go off and blow up the Middle East. Like this really horrific stuff that happens. And it's tragic to see. So like when we talk about Irish republicanism here, it has a very different meaning to what it might mean somewhere else. It doesn't have this right-wing reactionary kind of position that people might think it is, and especially when we talk about nationalism, people can get very confused when they hear that term, and obviously in your context, nationalism has a very negative connotation and has a very in some ways reactionary if you're coming at it from like a communist perspective.
Because in recent history, the nationalism here was used to destroy an internationalist project, while in your history it was used as a tool of liberation, both of the working class locally, but as well as the nation and the culture from an imperialist force.
Yeah, and actually, Karl Marx was so strong in this that he actually, like, of course, he was a huge supporter of the Fenian movement, and he had them coming over to the first international, like the communist movement, like the first international. You can actually read a great correspondence between him and the Republican prisoners who'd been put down in the 1867 Fenian uprising. Which again, the Fenian uprising, if you read the 1867 Fenian Proclamation, it's all about international solidarity, and it's all about connecting the struggle against colonialism with the working class struggle. It's an appeal at one point in the proclamation to the workers, even of England. So it's sort of saying we need to unite. So uniting with the workers, the working class in England, uniting both them and the oppressed masses in Ireland to take down the English ruling classes, the British ruling classes broadly, but the English ruling class in particular, So it was always this very internationalist project. And unfortunately, it's quite difficult to understand. Irish politics, I suppose they're not really for beginners. If you're coming from like an international context, it seems like everything's almost like backwards with regard to the politics. Left and right kind of appear to be the opposite when you're talking about republicanism and nationalism and what they actually mean in the Irish context. So it's kind of strange. But I think anyone who's in a colonial context or a semi-colonial context, anyone who's living under like a bureaucrat capitalist regime will probably have some sort of sense of what they're talking about. But I think our comrades who are living more so at the hearts of imperialism might, I suppose, struggle to make sense of what's going on here. Sorry, Hugo, I didn't mean to go off there. I think I was.
Oh no, that was very enjoyable. What the fuck? Never apologize to me, man. If you shoot my dog, you don't have to fucking apologize to me. Okay, maybe a little bit.
You don't have a dog,
but I don't have a dog, so you can shoot my dog. Yeah, you don't have it.
Yeah.
I love swearing on my brother. Like, dude, no, I'm not lying. I swear on my brother's life because I don't have a brother or a sister. Yep. Plot twist. I have a single child.
Oh, fuck. Well, that's a new revelation.
Well, actually, that leads me. Okay, now this is going to be a shit post conversation.
Oh, please.
But, okay, there's constant the discussions of privilege, right? And I absolutely agree with like 99% of them. But we are actively engaged in conversation about gender privilege, sexual orientation privilege, racial privilege. All of these things absolutely exist. I'm not debating this. Why are we nobody's talking about the difficult life of a short king, or for example short men. Nobody's talking about the difficulty of being born completely talentless. Like, why is nobody talking about talent privilege? Like, Kobe Bryant is one of the most privileged people on planet Earth because he was born with this insane talent of dunking fucking balls through a hoop, because which society values a lot for some fucking reason. No, okay, I'm not gonna go into that. But sports hating 101. But yeah, no, but genuinely, there are so many factors that do not uh, are
Well,
not in
it's
your
the
own
systemic.
control, which and yeah, and we like we understand that a lot of these things like give you immense a lot more ability to build something for yourself, let's call it that. But they're rarely discussed because they're kind of naturalized or whatever. Maybe in the future they're going to be discussed, and I'm not saying like, oh, you see a talented kid, don't let it play basketball because it's going to overtake the other fucking kid. Actually, capitalism, usually what happens is, no, the talented kid does not have a choice to pursue whatever output of labor which it wants, but it has to concentrate on what society presents to the child as most monetarily pleasing. That's why you probably have a shit ton of Teslas and a shit ton of Einsteins fucking filling out corporate accounting forms somewhere, or in contrast, living on like a fucking shithole farm somewhere where they have no opportunity to even read a book. Because of capitalism, they do not have access to fulfilling their full potential. I know that this can be a conversation,
Mm.
but I'm talking about, we're not like, there's a lot of people that are like, let's say the whole world is like living in a utopia or whatever. And then there would obviously still be a sort of difference between the one who has immense talent and one who doesn't, or one who's very good looking and one who looks like shit, like myself. Um,
Can
but
confirm.
yeah, I don't know. It has not. This discussion is pretty much okay. You could engage in dialectics with it, but it's just interesting to me that nobody kind of like talks about the fact that some people are born taller, prettier, smarter. Okay, smarter is a debate, but more talented, etc., etc. And they're just
Well,
taken like as okay, fine.
you know, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a grain of truth to what you're saying. I mean, probably more than a grain. It reminds me of something. It reminds me of something that makes me laugh. I shouldn't laugh my ass off.
Yeah,
But this is
men with
probably
big dicks and men
big
with
dicks,
small dicks. Like, what the fuck is that about?
big dick
Big tits,
privilege.
small tits. But you can make your tits bigger, you know? But like,
You can just
I'm
jam a
not even
sock.
kidding. Yeah,
Just jam
like,
a sock in there. It's fine. Don't worry about
and then
Get a couple of
fuck
socks
your
in
partner
there.
with a sock. Yeah. You got a bunch of socks on top of your dick,
You
and
know,
then a condom on top. Oh my god, that's a good idea, actually.
you're just in the
And
bedroom
then
with
the
a fucking
condom can
Pringles
hold
can.
the sock. Yeah.
Pringles can taped.
But there's
No,
but
let me
there's still
let me say.
there's still chips in the Pringles can, and she's super fucking tight, or he or them. And then they squeeze this Pringles can, and like chips just starts flying right into the asshole or the vagina or whatever. That would
Oh,
be a fun thing to watch.
and then best thing, they're into
One
it.
man,
They
one
love it.
Pringles can. Remember, one man, one jar.
You know what this reminds me of? This no, this reminds me of it. This is funny. All right. Let's dial it back. This is really funny. This conversation reminds me of there's a thread on Reddit one time that I saw. Okay, so there's this fucking fascist leader in Ireland. I don't think he's a leader. He's just a fucking dipshit. And I'm not even gonna say his name because he's not much of a dipshit. But he's known for being a how can we say a gentleman of small stature. he's not a tall man. He's quite petite, let's say. And so some of the things that people call, and he's a proper fascist. I mean, he went on like I think it was Australian television, and someone asked him, "What do you think should be done with people, doctors who provide abortions?" And he just goes, "Death sentence." Like just straight faced, didn't fuck around, just said, "Death sentence. They deserve to die." And that was the end of it. And everyone was just like, "What the fuck?" That was. Are you serious? You want to kill every doctor who helps someone get an abortion? What the fuck? So anyway, he's like an arch reactionary. He's been to like neo-Nazi rallies, like actual rallies in Germany with actual former Nazis. He's attended them and he's trying to build a movement here in Ireland. And nobody likes him. Everyone thinks he's a fucking gobshite. He's a fucking stupid fascist. He's whatever. And so people call him Hitler. People call him Shitler. And then people start calling him Littler. They started calling him Littler because he's small.
Love it.
Like, it's just like little Hitler, you know. But then this fucking bleeding heart liberal, I don't think it was a bleeding heart, I think it was actually a fascist apologist, started fucking going on to he started his thread on Reddit, and he was just like, "Oh, will nobody think of the small man?" And it was like,
Yeah.
you know, okay, I get it. You've got a point. There is actually a point there where small people do actually get a really
And
hard.
and
They get a
I'm
hard
1
time.
meter
You know?
91. Like I'm 1 meter 92 even. So
Really?
yeah, yeah.
You're fucking
Yeah.
huge. Jesus Christ. Fucking Empire State. Hugo. I don't know. I think I'm around whatever what is it, 183, 184. Hang on, let me give you all my details. Let me give you
Great.
let me give you my credit card details, my date of birth, my list of fears. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the liberals were. I don't know if it was like a fascist sort of pretending to be a liberal, getting like into privilege and all that sort of thing. But there is actually a point there where I think there's a lot of disadvantages that people have that kind of go unnoticed, because let's be honest, when we, especially as Marxists and communists, we're not really as focused on the identity stuff. You know, we do talk about, you know, racism and sexism, you know, LGBTQ plus phobia, because we understand them as oppressions that are part of class society. You know, we understand them as part of patriarchal violence which occurs as a result of private property. We understand racism in relation to colonialism. We understand that there's all these systemic things going on there which subjugate these people, and it causes, it's hell. It's a hell, and it's a collective experience of hell. You can't, like, nobody's getting shot by police for being small. You know, so it doesn't get the same.
There you go. Really good argument. There you go.
So we don't talk about that kind of thing as much, you know. Whereas we can point to, for example, trans people's life expectancy in Brazil, and realize that the average life expectancy in Brazil for trans people is like 33 or 35 or something like that, you know. And we can see, okay, well, where you don't have to worry about
what
that.
I'm suggesting here, no. What I'm suggesting here is to move focus, because let's imagine that we are innately believe in a completely reactionary world, and the world cannot be changed, right? Let's believe in the idea that humans are naturally evil or whatever. So in order to save people from racial discrimination, from LGBTQ plus discrimination, etc., we know that we cannot remove the hatred. So what I suggest we do is we direct hatred towards short people. So we move people
towards this one.
We create
one fascist
fictional quasi-science, like you know, quasi-science, which is race science, but we create height science to define that, like, for example, every dictator who has ever lived was extremely short. Right? It's obviously not the case, but we'll, you know, in our research papers, we'll exclude everybody else and only include these guys. And then,
holy shit, I see what you're doing.
You know, cops will beat the shit out of short motherfuckers on the street, right? We can concentrate on someone else, like a very evil group of people, such as short people, and unite everyone against them. Why unify people around class and build class consciousness when you can build height consciousness and then move it? But no, this all sounds like a joke, right? And it is pretty funny, but the reason why I went there isn't just because it's a shit post.
No, it's because
very easily in an alternate world, we concentrated on height instead of skin color, or we concentrated on
or religion,
eye color instead of gender, right? Instead of religion, etc., and we are shooting each other and fucking each other up and hating each other based on these characteristics. What I'm trying to say is that and Paul as well, I'm hoping, is just how nonsensical discrimination generally is.
All of it.
And it to that extent that in an alternate world we could be fucking heightist or whatever. Very easy to imagine, because it makes as little sense.
Yeah, exactly.
To hate somebody because he's taller or shorter, as it does, you know, because he fucking has more melanin. Jesus fucking Christ!
Yeah, exactly. It's so fucking ridiculous. But I mean, these just things like racism, things like all of these phobias and discriminations, these generally follow the oppression, the systemic oppression that occurs as a result of classes. So in general, now I don't mean like every single thing, but in general, these follow it, And so in Ireland, for example, the oppression, they couldn't really. They did try to racialize Irish people. Like the English did try to racialize us. You can actually go to like the 1100s, and they can, you can read what the English people at that time, the Anglo-Norman invaders, were writing about Irish people. And you can see very clearly that they were talking about an Irish race that was inferior, that was degenerate, a degenerate race of people that were uncivilized. We were living kind of, what James Connolly would have called like a Celtic communism. We were living a primitive communal kind of lifestyle, generally speaking, not always. We were considered barbarians. We were, and funnily enough, because Irish were considered quite conservative later on, but, we were considered sexually very wild. We would just it's a primitive communal society. We, we like to mess around. We had fun. Cuchulainn, the Hercules of Irish mythology and lore, was of course quite not only a womanizer, but of course he is known to have been with some men, and nobody fucking cared. Everyone was just like, yeah, cool, have fun, enjoy your life, So yeah, we were they really tried to racialize us, and it was only really with the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation that occurred in under Henry VIII in the 1500s, that it changed from the Irish race, the native and settler dynamic. It changed to religion. Religion became the kind of I suppose the mask under which colonial oppression was occurring. So it was now it wasn't about the native and the settler. Now it wasn't about this lesser degenerate race. It was about the degenerate Catholics, and it became the Irish Catholics. And that was a synonym, of course, for the natives or indigenous people. And that was, of course, used in all kinds of horrific ways, So they will just take a trait that they can use to justify their horrific oppressive behaviors, and this is often like post hoc. They'll do this like after they've committed a genocide based on colonial genocide, based on just general capital accumulation or whatever it might be. And then they'll say, oh, well, we did this because they're an inferior group based on X characteristic. In Ireland, they're Catholic. In much of the world, it was, well, they're not white, so they're not civilized. In Ireland, they did the same thing. They said, well, you're not civilized. So, we actually had to slaughter and massacre all those people on Rathlin Island. Like, they literally just slaughtered the entire island, every single one of them. They committed countless genocides over the years, and famines, starvations, all this kind of stuff, which, by the way, most people aren't aware of and did actually happen. But they will use whatever fucking vector of repression that we see now today as a justification for that. And I think that it is actually useful to think about these things and how they can sort of weaponize that against us. And they could potentially weaponize that sort of stuff against us in any way to justify this. But it all, of course, ultimately does come down to class society and class oppression and private property, especially if you want to get into Engels and that. And all right, sorry, I know I'm going back. I'm going way back. I'm going into Engels' origin of the family, private property. Excuse me, private property, the family, the state. Wait, what's the order there? Let me try and remember. Origin of private property, the family, and the state. I think that's the order. Anyway, sorry, Hugo. I know I went off on a mad one there.
No. Why the fuck are you apologizing, man? I told you can shoot my dog.
Yeah. I think I had a point, but then I just went off on a mad ramble in all kinds of different directions.
No, you did. No, that's the point of a live stream, bro. Come on.
Yeah.
You didn't stream for so long, you forgot about it.
I forgot how to live stream. Yeah, there's etiquette and protocol.
It's literally just sitting here, and there's no etiquette and no protocol. You just sit here and talk shit. That's the whole thing.
Whole channel dedicated to it. And by the way, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on my humble channel of 400 subscribers.
What the fuck? And that's 400 plus on your other one, so you're absolutely fine.
I appreciate that.
This was a very good idea to open another one and then build it up and not have to worry about, do I do a live stream now? Do I do a video now? It's just, it's probably a pain in the ass to transfer everyone over, but you probably should just mention it at the beginning of your videos.
The main videos, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Well, actually,
That's the main thing. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I actually want to give a little shit. We got a few viewers in here today, and thanks everybody for being here. 72 viewers. No, that's pretty good for the first video on this channel. So thank you very much for being here. We will do more interaction with those in the live chat. I will get to those questions. Don't worry, I am keeping note of the questions that I see there. There's a stream coming up as well. I want to say that it's going to be a pretty fucking big one. It's on the 14th of December. Now, I've got confirmed already. I've got Hakeem and Second Thought. So they're coming on. And maybe if Comrade Yugopnik here is available, Hugo will be here as well. And that'll mean I'll have the entire deprogramming.
I will be there. I'll be there.
Oh, shit. Amazing. I'm fucking delighted. Yeah, that is, holy shit, the whole deprogram gang. Hugo, can you please... tell everybody a little bit about the whole Deprogram podcast, because I'm so fucking hyped about it. I listened to, I'm sorry, I would like to say that I listened to all 3 episodes. I haven't. I think the 3rd episode is only available to patrons, and I'm struggling financially at the moment, unfortunately. But I did listen to the first 2, and they were fucking epic. I really, really enjoyed them. I was actually editing videos.
So?
Yeah, they were so fucking fun. They got the 3 of you just have such a good chemistry. It's really fun, really kind of, it's wacky, it's zany, but it's informative. And I loved that little thing with the when JT was talking about like the medical costs in the United States and the fucking ambulances, and it was like fucking, what is it, like nearly like 10, what is it, like five grand for an ambulance or something like that in the United States. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, you do really, really good stuff there. Man, that must have been fucking huge.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sorry. I think it dropped off for a second there. But yeah,
I'm back.
Sorry, yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Deprogram podcast and how that occurred and all the good stuff and how you're feeling about it. You must be really pumped and excited about this, because like just this time last year, you know, just imagining like where we both were this time last year and like where you are now. You're doing this like huge, amazing podcast, you know, with Hakeem and with Second Thought, and that's fucking massive. You know, your channel has skyrocketed this year, and you know you've done really, really well for yourself. You know.
Oh no, thank you. But yeah, it was luck mostly with the channel and just the algorithm liking one of the vids. It's eventually going to happen with one of yours as well, so don't worry. But with the podcast, yeah, it's been really exciting. We've been working on it for like, I don't know, 3 months now, because we wanted to have as many episodes in advance as possible, so that we make sure that we come out with an episode absolutely every week, no matter what happens, because it is kind of difficult to organize 3 people from literally 3 different corners of the world.
Yeah.
But we managed to do it, and the idea was rather simple. There is pretty much almost no genuinely internationalist perspective that's in the format of a podcast, and when it comes to discussing politics in general, be it from a left or a right or a center perspective. And all 3 of us being, you know, communists with different flavors, but also agreeing on pretty much 99% of things, but with very, very different backgrounds and very different lifestyles and very different cultures, etc., etc. It just felt like it could be something worth pursuing. And the second we recorded the first episode as kind of a test or a pilot, we realized that holy shit, okay, we're onto something.
Yes.
This could be really, really fun.
Yeah.
And then we recorded quite a few episodes since, and it continued being fun. So thank you for the very kind words.
Oh man, it's great.
I'm really looking forward to doing it. Like the hype was so intense that after we posted it, I don't know, 4 days ago, kind of burned out on it. I couldn't like do anything else for like the next 2 days.
Yes, I was
concentrated on that. I was checking out the download counter. Podcasts are weird. It has a download counter, not a view counter.
Yeah,
and it takes all the shit from the different platforms. But now it's at like 13K, which like puts us, I don't know, 0.5% of podcasts or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Jesus,
but that could be just overhype over the first episode. Blah blah blah.
Well,
maybe people
it's great. It's a good podcast. So I mean, and everybody loves everybody loves you. Everybody knows you've already got established platforms. All 3 of you independently stand as really well, like renowned, well known, very very much appreciated creators in your own right. So coming together, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
It would be a great honor, and I think I speak in the name of Hakeem and JT as well. From JT is from Second Thought, by the way, everybody. But
Legends. I adore JT.
we would love to have you on the episode on the podcast when we start actually taking guests, because we haven't started, but we 1,000,000% will. So that would be really fun, and we could, for example, talk specifically about Irish republicanism
Hell
and
yeah,
get the
baby.
Republic as informed as possible on it. So it
Fucking
would be a pleasure
yes.
to have you on.
I would fucking love that, and thank you very much for the offer. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I was talking a little bit about to Hakeem and JT about this, and yeah, I'd adore it. Yeah, all three of you have actually offered it. I don't know if you've spoken about this, but the three of you have actually offered me.
No, no, I swear, no, not at all.
And I really, really appreciate
communist
it.
teamwork. Oh, everybody's
Great
doing
minds.
shit on
Great
their own,
minds.
but turns out it's the same mentality.
You
But
know,
yes,
I got a really the vibe I get from it is really. Did you ever listen to the Antifada? I think they pronounce it as like that. Antifada podcast. Did you ever listen to that?
no.
It's kind of
My
like
bad.
ultra left, kind of. It's kind of like a Trotskyist left comedy kind of podcast, but it's really fun. Like it's hilarious. The people on it have like really good vibes. At least it was anyway when it started. I haven't listened to it in a while. But it's just like a really, really funny left wing podcast, and I really, really enjoyed listening to it. And that's the kind of vibe I got when I was listening to this, especially that fucking intro, like the very first intro of the first episode. I just thought it was so funny. Like there's like welcome to the podcast, and oh fuck, I messed up the lines. Oh fuck, and then the music starts playing. That fucking music, oh man, like, you just nailed it. You just absolutely nailed it.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
so keep
You.
on
That
going.
was,
Anyway,
I did. I think it was my idea, but maybe it was theirs. Nobody cares. I'm kidding. No, it is. The song is completely custom, and it's made as a combination of American, Arab, and Slav music. We all sent a song and kind of compiled it into one with a very cool artist. And yeah, it turned out really nice. I'm in love with the beat for sure. It
yeah,
really
it's
gets the
so
hype
good.
going for
It's
what's
fucking
coming.
great.
It gets you
You're ready to party,
pumped.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, consider me pumped, and I'm really looking forward to that podcast whenever that happens. At any point, just give me a call, and we'll make that happen. All right, comrade. Thank you very much for all that. There's been a bunch of questions. I'm sorry for not interacting more with the chat, guys. Thank you for being here. It's nearly like we're coming up to an hour into it. Excuse me, I just belched into the microphone. That's fucking disgusting. Fuck me. A few people have jumped in who I recognize. I see Jess there. How are we getting on? Carlos. Let me see who else coming here. Comrade Flamer, Crap F, Furore Productions. Good to see you. Harry keeping. Let's take another question here. Let's see what we got. This one's for you, Hugo. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this question, but this was asked probably about half an hour ago. Southern Comrade, I tip my hat to you, sir. Do a real neckbeard moment there. Marxist Paul question for Hugo. And Hugo, if you know this, take it. If you don't, then don't worry. We'll move on to the next one. What's up with Bosnia splitting up? Do you know anything about Bosnia splitting up?
Oh, Southern, what's up, my man? I love Southern Comrade.
Southern's
If
fantastic.
it's the OG Southern Comrade, I think it is.
Southern
But,
Comrades, Hammer and Sickle,
So
Karl Marx beard.
Bosnia, everything is heating up because the elections are coming. One should not be worried too much at the current moment, because all of the different republics, not republics, but federative republics inside of Bosnia and they want to show teeth, as we like to say in my part of the world, about being very ruthless with the other ethnicity in order to get elected, obviously. So that's pretty much a political stunt, I am 95% sure. But if the elections end, and right after that the rhetoric continues or intensifies even, that's when I would say, okay, there's some room for not necessarily fear or panic, but for some worry. But yeah, Bosnia, the way it is set up right now, needs to have some work done on it in order to survive as a federative republic, or it in the long term, I'm talking like next 50 years, there is a chance of it eventually falling apart, because every republic inside of it is kind of pushing in its own direction and calling the other one out for pushing in the opposite. And it could look like a a potential falling out could occur in the distant future.
Mm.
I'm not sure if it would be violent or whatever. It could be referendum based. I personally hope it doesn't, because like even smaller banana republics on the Balkans is not a good thing in my eyes. But we'll see what happens.
Mm.
But yeah, right now I'm not worried. Right now I think it's just rhetoric. I think it's three federative republics with three far right leaderships trying to get reelected. That's it.
All right, thank you, Hugo, for that analysis. I don't know anything about the particularities of Bosnia, so I appreciate that perspective on that. And also, the same comrade asks, are either of you considering other platforms, Rockfin, etc., as a backup to YouTube? And I have to say that I think we really should. I keep saying that I'm going to do. I have everything backed up like on a hard drive, on an external hard drive. I just haven't uploaded anything to any other platforms, but. Unfortunately, yeah, any day YouTube or Google or whoever could target you. There could be a mass campaign of hate from like fascists or whatever, and yeah, we could get taken down. So yeah, I think we do need to probably start backing up our stuff. Hugo, do you have any backups, or have you thought about that? Or
No, I don't, but it would be a really smart thing to do. I also have them downloaded somewhere, but there's plenty of platforms that kind of offer exactly that solution for channels. Like you don't even have to re-upload everything. You can just link your channel and prove through your email that you're the owner of your channel, and they kind of backlog everything for you as well. But I guess the safest way to go is to have it on a hard disk as well, like never just in one spot.
yeah, definitely multiple backups if you can, even cloud storage maybe. Very good. Thank you, comrade. Jess, how are you getting on, Jess? Good to see you. Jess Doya. So, Hugo and Paul, do y'all? I can't say that. I can't say y'all, but it's strange.
Y'all.
Y'all.
Hey,
I
y'all.
love it. I wish I could, because like we in Ireland we say use or use. I tried to make my accent a little bit more acceptable and say like use, but in Dublin it's here like use. It's almost like a double. It's like there's like two syllables to it. Use like cooking. So do you like cooking? What kind of meal would you cook and share with each other? Jess, I think we've talked a lot about pizza before streams. Back in the day, we used to talk about eating like pizza and pasta and shit like that before. So that's a giveaway. I'm a big pizza person. I love. I definitely think pizza is the ultimate sharing food. Definitely, I'm a big pizza person. Even just a plain nice cheese pizza or whatever it might be. Fuck, if you want to get crazy, I am a big advocate, and I'm sorry, hot take here. I'm probably going to lose a few subscribers for saying this now, and I apologize. I'm a big pineapple on pizza person. Sorry, Hugo, if you're not.
Jesus fucking Christ!
Maybe
What
I'm getting the
fuck is
wall.
wrong with you, man?
That's very interesting.
You want to put some shrimp on top as well? You absolute fucking monkey! Jesus fucking Christ!
This is the
what the fuck?
This is actually
fuck you. I'm
the degenerate
gonna go get
Irish
some more
race.
vodka. I'll go get more vodka. I can't fucking stomach this. Jesus fucking Christ, man! What the fuck, dude?
Sorry, Michael Ross, ye erasure. Typical dub. Sorry, Michael Ross. And how are you, Mick? Good to see you. I got a little message there from Mick saying, "It's great to have you back, Paul. How are you getting on, Mick? It's good to see you." Sorry, I don't mean to be erasing our Cork comrades. Ye is actually a way better. It's much better than saying use or use, as we do in Dublin. So yeah, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that you can get away with saying that. There are dubs who say y'all, by the way, and they get a bit of stick for it. They get a bit of people give them a bit of shtick. It's kind of seen as like a weird, a strange import, from abroad.
Okay, I'm back. Did you snap out of the pineapple phase of your life?
No, pineapple for life, baby. I'm gonna die. I will die on this hill. Pineapple belongs on pizza.
Well, you just lost a subscriber.
I actually think
that's for sure. But not to your channel. I will always be a subscriber to your channel, but a subscriber of Paul Moran Thought, because
my Patreon support's dropped. Hang on now. What's that about? Let me see here.
You do not. I cannot follow a materialist
you can support this.
a materialist who does not understand the inadequacy of pineapple on pizza, but
The dialectics of
you do
pineapple.
you,
See,
whatever.
Hugo, you need to consider the internal and external contradictions and the internal basis for all progression to the higher state, the supersession with pineapple. That's what you need to understand. If you don't understand that, then you
But
don't
it's
understand.
not. It's not a supersession. Look, whatever. Like
We're at that stage where we're just
the
talking
cheese
shit now.
itself is. Actually, I would argue that the margarita is the OG pizza. Like everything
Yeah,
else is
no, it
fucking
is. I
bullshit.
agree.
But okay. I mean, yeah, you can add some shit on top, whatever. And if you add a bit and then add a bit, you become a pizza revisionist, and you have even pineapples on top of it eventually. You start with some pepperoni. Oh, let's put some tomatoes on top, and
Mozzarella.
then boom, there you go. You got this fucking thing. So
Potatoes on
whatever. But
pizza. That
yes, I
sounds
love
fucking
food. I love
based.
food,
As an
and
Irishman, I approve.
I love. Yeah, fuck yes. But yeah, I love cooking. By cooking, I mean when people cook for me. Yes, I fucking love it.
Oh, fucking hell, I missed this. All right. Next one. Actually, this isn't the next question. This isn't the next question at all. It's a question that I saw recently and I wanted to address straight away. There is actually we don't have super chats anymore. I think because this is a new channel. There's no monetization or anything like that. There's no super chat, so there's no hierarchy for how we should answer questions. So it's purely merit based. If it's a good question, we'll get to it straight away. And if it's not such a good question, then we'll come to it in time. But I do have it written down here. We will get through them. Good
Do you
question.
have Streamlabs? You can post Streamlabs so people, if they want to donate to you, they can donate.
Yeah, I do have Streamlabs, but I don't know how the donate function works in Streamlabs or how they would send me money. I don't know how that
Find
works.
out, Jesus Christ, Paul! Oh my fucking God! How
Guys,
are you going to
just
be
send me
able to
loads of money.
afford pineapple pizzas if people don't fucking send you money? Oh my!
Guys, just send me loads of money. Don't worry about
turning me
it.
into a revisionist myself. Yes.
Marxism, Arianism. How do I pronounce that? Arianism. Paul, what are your thoughts on Scottish and Welsh independence? All solidarity and support to those seeking national liberation and self-determination in Scotland and Wales. 100% supported, and anything that contributes towards the breaking up of the United Kingdom. Fuck the United Kingdom. Absolutely fuck the United Kingdom. And I support the comrades in their struggle for national liberation, self-determination. Now, of course, some people will say, well, are they really nationally oppressed? I leave that to the comrades for them to say. I do think there are elements of semi-colonialism going on there in both of those territories known now as Scotland and Wales. But I will leave that to the comrades in Scotland and Wales to give the full on analysis from the Marxist perspective with regard to how they relate to the national question and what distinguishes them from, for example, the English and so on and so forth. So I'll leave that to them. But yeah, absolutely 100% support for Scottish and Welsh independence. And I think even within England as well, Northern England, I think there are some questions there. Ultimately, we need to kind of isolate off the ruling class. You know, the ruling class in England. You know, they need to be. They're the ones who need to be isolated. They're the arch reactionaries, you know, that need to be isolated from the people. And so if we can,
You know what I learned? You know what I learned? I'm reading a lot about. Probably going to be my next video about Nazi race science. And you know what was very funny when it comes to Hitler's view on are the English Aryan or are they not? Quite literally,
what do you say?
He said that the English slash the British, actually they would refer to them as the British, but that would always exclude the Irish. Um, there was higher Aryan and lower Aryan, and that depended on what percentage of your population had Nordic genes and Nordic blood. And the British were lower Aryans, but they were still Aryans because there was, in their eyes, between 25 and 35, from what I remember, percent Nordics there. But the funny thing, why did I mention this? Because you reminded me when you said we need to isolate the uh, upper classes of the bourgeois
The
of
ruling class, yeah.
the ruling class of England, is that Hitler himself said that in England, the lower classes are not really Aryan, and the higher classes contain a lot more Nordic in them. And therefore, when they are interacting with them, the higher classes of England should be accepted as Aryans, while the lower classes
Jesus.
should not.
That's
So,
gas.
as a proud anti-Kraut and anti-Aryan, I agree that the destruction of the English upper classes must be engaged with, not only through the lens of class and class consciousness, but also through the lens of fuck the Germans up the ass. Because basically, Hitler said that rich English people are Germans, and I'm always up for fucking me some Germans. I'm sorry, Germans in chat, I love you. Like, you're not Krauts. Like, get my fucking point. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm never apologizing to a German. I'm sorry. Because of a little thing called World War II, we fucking forgave you guys a bit too quick, if you ask me, but whatever. And then we gave you the fucking power to rule the entire EU. That's a fucking great fucking idea. They're definitely not going to start World War III because now they kind of fucking own Europe already. Okay, that's a different conversation. Yeah, sorry.
We can circle back. We can circle back to that one.
Ich liebe meine deutsche Freunde. Like, I don't have anything against Germans, but it was just a very nice rant to go on. As an Eastern European, I think
Did you just say I love you, my German friends?
Yes, yes.
You know German. You kept this hidden from me.
Very little, a bit.
Legend. You never cease to amaze, Hugo. Let me see. We've got a few more questions here, and we'll take them, and then we'll push on. CRAB Coco asks, Paul, do you and Hugo support Black American independence from the USA on the continent of North America? Hugo, do you want to take this first, or do you want me to take it first?
Whatever, you go first. I just talked for like 10 minutes about hating Germans, and I don't want it to bug my brain and continue like hating on someone I don't hate. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I totally support. As Lenin wrote, the black people in the United States, the New Africans, they are an oppressed nation. These are Lenin's words. These are not mine. It doesn't fucking matter what I have to say about this. This is what Lenin has to say about this. Lenin recognized them as an oppressed nation, and on the basis of their being an oppressed nationality, they have the right to self-determination. They have the right to self-determination. So it's not about whether or not we support their independence, whether we think that this group of people, this nation should break away. It's about whether or not we think that they should have the right to self-determine and to make the decision for themselves whether or not they want to break away and form their own country and have their own territories and so on and so forth. So yeah, absolutely, I 100% support their right to self-determination. No, this isn't like an uncritical thing. This is 100% support their right to self-determination. 100%. Hugo?
No, same. Wouldn't add anything. Wouldn't remove anything.
Yeah.
The only case like one could argue against self-determination, quote unquote, even though then it wouldn't be called self-determination, is when it's a reactionary force speaking in the name of an ethnic group and saying that in their name they want to create a separate state, right? Like, I don't know, you have imagine in northern Germany, in Bavaria, you have the Nazis come back, and they manage to take over the Bavarian region. And they say, "Oh, we as Bavarians have the right of self-determination inside of Germany under the pretenses of, in that case, it would be like reactionary concepts that they install. Then it would not necessarily be defined as self-determination, both under UN law, but also from the lens of Marx and Lenin, etc. But when it comes to black determination in the States, as it is now, I can absolutely see their point of view, why they would want to establish a separate state outside of the neo-colonial hellhole, which is the US. So yeah, support it completely.
Yeah, we're definitely in agreement there. The next question that we have is from Thomas Rossmud. Red salute from Ireland, comrade. Hope you're keeping well. Do you guys have any tips on easing someone over to the left who used to be an American small business owner and is very set in the mindset of bring yourself up by your bootstraps? So, Hugo, I feel like you have some good thoughts on this and some good perspective. You're very good at sort of, I think, converting people from more like centrist positions towards the lefts. And I think that you might have some good thoughts on this. How would you approach someone who's coming from kind of a middle class or petty bourgeois background towards socialism and communism and all these sorts of things?
Thank you very much. But okay, so he said or they said, I don't, I'm not sure, that they used to be a small business owner. So what is actively happening in capitalism is, and why I make the argument that even the petit bourgeois in modern late stage capitalism have more interests in line with the proletariat than they do with quote unquote big businesses, that absolutely everything is being proletarianized, quote unquote, which means that the big fish are eating absolutely everybody, and fish that up until 30, 40 years ago, like your small mom and pop shop owner, who have no ability to survive anymore. So their interests no longer even lie with the system as it is now, because it quite literally eats them alive.
Mm.
So the argument I would use for him, because he said used to be a business owner, is okay. Well, you used to be a business owner. Why are you no longer a business owner? And they will start giving arguments of a wide range, be it that their employees sucked, or that they sucked, or the market destroyed them, etc., etc. Be rational and hope that they're rational and push them in the direction which will obviously be the correct one, which is that it was market forces which influenced this business. Then help him dive deeper into why the market forces are the way they are, and why are they destroying businesses such as the one he founded, and his business in particular. Eventually you will come to the conclusion that it is the continuous concentration of capital into smaller and smaller hands, which at that point should show him that the continuation of such a system is against his own interests. And then in the end, he, as you said, believes in bring yourself up by your bootstraps. Say, okay, I agree. You know, you shouldn't put things like, you shouldn't say it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. So bring yourself up by your bootstraps and understand that the reason you are in this system, the reason you are in the position you are in, is because of these specific factors which are influencing you. Therefore, bring yourself up by your bootstraps and actively fight against these systematic problems, which will allow you to quite literally bring yourself up. So play on his idea that everybody has complete control over their own lives, and push it towards him understanding that he should exercise this control over his own life and his own destiny against those who harm him the most. So yeah, don't be like you're in this position. It's not your fault because of these guys, but say, okay, you're in this position because these guys fucked you. Fuck them back by having a better class solidarity, and then you can push them in the right direction. So yes, greed does not only have you don't have to only use greed for capitalist arguments. You can very easily use it for communist arguments as well. It's just how you frame the fucking thing in front of him. That's it.
That was actually an extremely profound answer there, and I want to elaborate on this, because what you said there, there's a lot in what you said which might flow, which I think really we should reflect on a lot, because there's something, if you study war, if you study martial arts, if you study any kind of martial arts, you'll learn very quickly that one of the things that you need to do is to use your enemy's strength against them, so that your enemy's strength actually becomes their weakness and your strength. You know, you need to learn. If somebody goes to punch you, you step aside, and their punch now is you just literally just step aside and let that fall over, and behind the weight of that punch, they're gonna fall over. You just kick them in the back of the knee, they fall over, whatever. So you use your enemy's strength against them, right? And so this is it. This is to pull yourself up by the bootstrap mentality is the enemy's strength. This capitalist, individualist, bourgeois ideology. But what you've done there is you've subtly changed that. So it's not bring yourself as an individual up by your bootstraps. Rather, it's let's bring ourselves. Let's bring ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? Together, collectively. Let's actually do that. Exactly. And what that means is ultimately working class, let's say it, revolution. Working class revolution, exactly. You know, seizure of the means of production, distribution, and exchange, you know, democratic control in the workplaces. It means working class state power and control, and us collectively deciding what to do with that, you know. And so, yeah, absolutely, use your enemy's strength against them, and that's a really profound way of saying of understanding how we should be dealing with these things. Anytime you see a formidable foe confront you, and I've had this, by the way. We talk about socialism, we talk about communism, and sometimes it can become very overwhelming. We can become extremely disenchanted because it's one thing for us to say, "Oh, comrade, how are you getting on?" Blah, and we can sort of bask in the reflected glory of Soviet aesthetics or Chinese Cultural Revolution aesthetics or whatever it might be. And we can focus on that stuff, and yeah, that's fun. Okay, we can LARP it a little bit, and it's a lot of fun. But when we actually think about seizing state power or something like that, it just seems like it's something impossible. Like that. This isn't actually something that we could really do. We couldn't actually do revolution. We couldn't actually seize power for our class and redistribute that to the people. We couldn't actually do that. But these are just ideas. We're just talking about things. We can feel that way, and we can feel that way especially when it comes to talking about things like great imperialist powers like the United States of America. We can look at the United States of America and see that they've got over 800 military bases all across the world. We can look at the military technology that they have right now. I remember this one day. I remember I was sitting there one day and I just saw they had these little, these fucking robot dogs. Have you seen these? Boston.
Oh yeah, all the time, absolutely.
Jesus,
and those videos when they
fuck.
beat the shit out of them, I kind of feel bad for the robots, but then I remember
It doesn't
that
actually.
probably they'll
That'll be all right.
drop those robots on top of my house to like stab my baby in its
Jesus,
fucking
yeah.
crib and like fucking eat it for biological fuel so that it can have more power to fucking attack my grandma.
Oh man, the Animatrix
Yeah.
becomes reality. Yeah, no, but this is it. So like,
we will make Matrix look like a fucking joke. Because in the Matrix, the machines actually keep the fucking humans around because they're like, okay, we can use them as fuel, and we can, without them, then do we really exist? Because does the tree in the field exist if you do not see the tree? Blah blah blah, fucking metaphysics. But our robots will just be like, fuel, I eat now. Yes, thank you. Sorry. Yes,
bye, fuck you. I'm gonna kill you. That's the end of it. Yeah. Well, this is it. It can be very disillusioning. Like if you're actually talking about communism, you're actually talking about socialism. How can you deal with this? How can you actually deal with this reality that we're potentially confronting robots, not military, not just a regular army that you can go in and deal with regular force, but fucking robots.
The answer is what you said previously, that their strength make it against them.
Exactly.
You can fucking use the robots on those fucking guns.
Exactly. They have a bunch of robots. Well, fuck. Yeah. If one person is able to do that, then our class is also able to. Now, I'm not going to get into particularities and specifics because obviously shit, but I will say, guys, learn how to code and learn how to hack. Because if you learn how to hack and you learn how to code, then you'll be in a much stronger position for dealing with these kinds of issues.
And if you're dumb like me, learn how to punch, learn how to reload a gun, learn how to clean a gun, learn how to use one in Minecraft, and yeah.
In Minecraft.
It doesn't hurt.
And in Minecraft, Chairman Mao said, all reactionaries are paper tigers. And what that means is that they can fold in. You fold in that tiger piece by piece. It's blown up like a paper tiger, but ultimately it folds into small little pieces, and piece by piece you take it down, and that's it. And that's how you actually take power. That's how you take down this paper tiger. All of them. He said this about Hitler. He said this about Japan. He said about all these horrific reactionary fascist empires, imperialist powers that were just committing atrocities all over the world. And he was correct. And ultimately, he says that the best metaphor that you can read Chairman Mao saying is that how do you approach eating a big meal? Let's say you get a big meal, a Sunday meal. Surely, when you see a big meal, you can't look at it and go, "Wow, I can eat that in one fell swoop. I can just inhale the whole thing." No, you cut it up piece by piece, one mouthful at a time, slowly. Systematically, you think about it, Let's say you got mashed potato, you got some meat, and you got some vegetables. You take it piece by piece, you tactically figure out and strategically figure out which is the best way of going about this. Piece by piece, one at a time, and then slowly, in time, it's gone. You've taken down the whole meal. You couldn't do it in one bite. And this is a mistake that a lot of people fall into. A lot of people just think, okay, well, we'll just have one big insurrection and we'll take down the state and we'll have communism and that's it. Well, I'm sorry, guys, but that hasn't really worked historically anywhere. Even if you think the Bolshevik Revolution, that's how it was. It wasn't. It was actually a much longer, protracted process of taking it piece by piece. But you can, if you take these, if you break it up, if you isolate it and atomize it, and understand that piece by piece, one by one, you can take these things down. Then you're going to be then you're going to be able to take power. So, that is to say, we can be revolutionary optimists if we are strategic and we understand all of these facts about reality. That is how the Chinese won power. That's how the CPC won power. That's how they beat off the Japanese imperialists and how they built socialism. That's how they did it. And if they could do it, then we can too. We have to push back against these defeatist notions, and I don't mean Lenin's revolutionary defeatism. I mean like defeatism is in like, what the fuck's the point? Just forget about it. It's all fucked. Let's just, I don't know, get high and not worry about it. We can actually build socialism. We can actually build communism in our lifetimes. If you're a person who's under the age of 60 or even under the age of 70, probably in the next couple of decades, you could actually contribute to it and you could actually bring about socialism. But you need to be systematic. There is scientific oppression going on, and we need scientific socialism and a systemic theory for the liberation of the oppressed masses, the oppressed classes. And we have that. And we know that studying Marxism, studying Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Engels, Mao, and so on, this is how we can actually do this. We can bring it about. It has happened. Unfortunately, we're still all living in this cloud, the mist of the, how can we say, the end of history. This idea. We're only coming out of that trance that we were all in from the 90s onwards, But now more and more people are awakening and realizing that actually we can do socialism, and this is how we do it. So, study your Mao, guys. Study your Stalin, your Lenin, your Engels, and of course your Marx. It can happen. It has happened before, and it will happen again. It's inevitable, because the inherent contradictions of capitalism, the inherent contradiction between the social character of production and the private form of appropriation, means it is a historical inevitability. And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Socialism and communism are, despite what the reactionaries will say, an inevitable force that will happen. Now, I don't mean say they're going to happen automatically by themselves. I mean say that the people will necessarily rise up and resist this exploitation and oppression, and communism will happen as a result of that. So, get out and fucking do it. Okay.
Bravo, that was beautiful.
Shit, Hugo, I did it again. Sorry. This is months and months of
I
around.
love it. It gets me hard. Oh no, did I say that out loud? Jesus Christ. No, it's very nice. Very nice.
Hugo, Southern Comrade asks, pastry question. This is for you specifically. Slatko, and I'm probably mispronouncing this. All right, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Slatko.
That was very good. Slatko, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Krofny.
Keep saying it. Yeah.
Krofny.
Slatki Krofne, okay.
Krofne.
That's sweet donuts, okay.
Maknovjaksha. I don't know what the fuck it is. What is it?
I'll. Did you write them down in the list?
Let me see. They're on the list. Let me Discord. Let me put it in Discord here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Let me see. Slatko Krofne Maknovjina. I don't know what it says. What the fuck?
I am okay. Slatko, which is a different type of thing, which is made of Slatko.
I fucked up, guys. I messed up.
Bore everybody else. Yes, no, you were fine. No, because you said Slatko Krofne together, but Slatko and Krofne are a different thing. Makovnjača, Slatko by far, with some water. Usually when you go see your grandmother, right? You walk into house and grandmother says, "Oh, hello, I have not seen you in 50 years. Please come here, my son." Then she kisses you, spreads all the COVID on you. And then she says, "Please sit down." And then she comes with this little, usually beautiful metal or silver. If you were, somebody who worked in a pretty decent industry and could afford it, sometimes even gold, like metal, fucking what do you call it, plate. And then on it, there's two little glass cups, which are filled with basically marmalade. Is that the English term? Marmalade, does that exist?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Basically homemade marmalade that they make before the beginning of autumn every year. There, and then a little cup next to it filled with water, and then a little cup that is empty. So you take the little metal spoon, you take some of the marmalade, you drink together with the actual fruit inside. It's not like destroyed and industrially made. You eat it, it's super sweet. It opens up your fucking appetite and everything. Then you drink the water to stabilize your mouth from all the sweetness, and then you throw the little spoon into the other empty cups. So it's all hygienic and stuff. And if there's more people, she will then continue to walk around the room and give everybody to try this specific, like the marmalade is the beginning of the day. It's like a
Oh, that sounds
welcome
great.
thing when you're coming to the home. But yeah,
That
yeah,
sounds really
Slatko by
wholesome.
far.
Oh
It
man, that
is.
sounds great.
It really, really is.
Hey, listen, I need to. I'm going to be honest. I'm so sorry to piss on your parade and this lovely, wonderful, wholesome experience. I really need to run to use the bathroom. I do need to piss real bad.
Go.
You mind if I go?
Give me a question.
You can see the questions here.
Okay, I found them. Yeah.
You can see the question.
Which one are we at?
Pick
here?
a question. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You just pick a question that you want from that list there, and see. You can probably see a few questions in the chat there. Have you got a question that you
Okay.
answer?
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe there's one.
Something-
What's the situation right now in Russia, Belarusian border with the EU? Maybe if you want to talk about
Okay,
that.
yeah, I'll be quick.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, go pick.
I'll be quick. Give us a second.
I talked about this plenty on my Twitter. So, Belarus and Poland. There are tens of thousands of migrants currently being positioned and literally squeezed between the two republics. Belarus has been completely ostracized from the EU for some reasons that, in my opinion, make sense, but 99% of them which do not. Uh, Belarus does not feel any need to stop these, usually in 99% of the cases, Middle Eastern migrants from moving forward into Poland, which is a member of the EU. For the non European listeners here, Belarus is not a member of the EU. Therefore, and because of that, the EU has harshly reacted to what Belarus is doing when it comes to pushing the migrants towards the border. But Belarus is not pushing the migrants, they are simply not stopping them from moving through the country. One could make the argument that that is pushing because when you have an illegal migrant, you have to quote unquote detain them somewhere, which Belarus is not doing. Because why the fuck would Belarus do it? If I was Belarus, I would not be doing this. So they are all moving towards Poland, and now this EU, which is criticizing Belarus for its treatment of refugees, even though Belarus is arguably one of the only countries in Europe, not the European Union, in Europe, which I have not heard of massive mistreatments at, is simply allowing these people to move through the country because what? These people do not want to stay in Belarus. They want to go towards the EU. And how is the EU responding to that? With massive barbed wires and
Fortress Europa.
armed militias right on the border with Belarus. So massive hypocrisy happening there. Absolute cringe. Calling the country that's quite. It's funny that the country which is defined by most EU politicians as the quote unquote last dictatorship in Europe is treating migrants 500 times better than the utopia of the European Union, which does not even want to allow them in. So yeah, I've had plenty of criticisms towards Lukashenko before, and I always will have. But this move of his absolutely brilliant, absolutely on point, kind of a massive troll, quite literally playing on the Europeans' racism. But unfortunately, like jokes aside, the only people who are going to suffer in this whole situation are going to be the migrants themselves, and a few have already died, and probably plenty more will, and nobody's going to talk about it because has any interest in talking about it. Like that, you be honest with yourself as well. If you're scrolling down a news feed or a feed on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and you see two migrants dead while trying to pass border, will you click? You will not click. and news. But that says a lot about journalism, which is profit driven nowadays, and it all is systematic at the end of the day. But yeah, that's the situation with the border.
Thank you for that great analysis. I mean, I probably got the second half of that there, and it was really, really insightful. So, really appreciate that. Thank you, Hugo. Anush Gush asks a couple times here, so I will go ahead and answer this and get set it away. Paul, what are your thoughts on Gonzalo Thot and the Communist Party of India, Maoist? There's two aspects to that. I suppose the first part there is Gonzalo Thot, and when we talk about Gonzalo Thot, the three aspects of Gonzalo Thot would be, in terms of how to organize a political organization, would be concentric construction of the organization. So, for example, you'd have the Communist Party in the center, then you'll have the People's Army on the outside of that, sort of a concentric circle outside of that, and then outside of that again you'll have the mass organizations, the front organizations, the legal above ground organizations, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think concentric construction is a really, really useful tool that people should be considering and paying a lot of attention to. I think it's very, very important. Other aspects, Hefetura. Sometimes I think that this is a little bit misleading, because it can sound, I suppose, a little bit like kind of like a great leadership or something like that. Like a cult of personality kind of thing. But I don't think that that's actually how it's meant. It's just kind of a reality that if you look back at revolutionary history, you do see that there are great leaders, and you do need to kind of recognize that we should be nurturing and cultivating great leaders in our movements, like, for example, James Connolly or Seamus Costello or Liam Mellows or Wolfe Tone in the Irish context. Personally, as a communist, I would be more interested, and I would say that from like the Irish context and from everything that we've learned from revolutionary history, that we would see collective leadership as great leadership in the Irish context. We would have a great collective leadership rather than an individual great leadership or something like that, because if you have one person who is amazing and knows everything and does everything, is an incredible intellectual, an incredible militant, an incredible revolutionary, it's very easy to kill that one person, and then the whole movement is just set back, a couple of decades. And that happened to us, with Seamus Costello in Ireland, when the reactionary forces killed Seamus Costello in I think it was the mid to late 1970s. The entire Irish Socialist Republican movement was set back. Well, it's still reeling to this day, if I'm being very honest. But he was the greatest revolutionary since James Connolly in Ireland, However, if we focused on creating a group of more people, a collective leadership, and all of them would have been at the same level as him, then I think we would have been in a much better position. So from the Irish revolutionary experience, we can say that a collective leadership, a Hefetura, but a collective great leadership is the way to go forward. And also it means that if reactionary forces, the forces of the state and so on, try to take down revolutionary movements, it's not, all our eggs aren't going to be in one basket. The whole thing isn't going to fall apart just because one person was, either killed or put into prison for life or whatever it might be. So that's what I'd say on that. So yeah, I suppose concentric construction, Hefetura, great leadership. There's a third aspect to Gonzalo Thot, which I believe it eludes me right now. If anyone can put in the third aspect into the chat, I can talk about that a little bit more. But what I would say is, with regards to Chairman Gonzalo, that is Gonzalo Thot is the application of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism to the particular conditions of Peru. Although I would accept that there are aspects of that which are obviously universally applicable. It's obvious that any revolutionary movement does have great leaders in them that come out of the struggle. Even if Hugo's talking about in the Yugoslav context, we all talk about Tito as this great figure who people loved and adored, and whatever criticisms you might have, the people did adore Tito in many ways and stuff. So we can't. Sometimes the revisionists like to sort of present this as a cult of personality sort of thing. Meanwhile, at the same time, they'll have like a picture of Stalin up, or a picture of Lenin or Marx or something, and guys, we just need to recognize that in our movements there are going to be these great figures who are fantastic communists and fantastic revolutionaries, and that's okay. We shouldn't try to take them down. Rather, we should try to bring everyone up and have a collective great leadership.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But still, remember to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. We don't want to put people on pedestals.
But that is a very good point. It is a very good point that you made, and it's extremely important, and not a lot of people think about it, because when you do, as you said, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just want to put this one, just staying in people's minds. So you can go one way and say, okay, it's fucked up that these so-called cults of personality were created around these people, which very often absolutely deserved to be maybe not deified, but that have done so much for the movement that the amount of respect people just wanted to innately show them was sorry for repeating myself, but yes, absolutely deserved. But then you have the opposite side, which thinks that once somebody earns such a place in the movement, and once they have done so much for it, that that they should never be questioned. They should be followed without a second of thought. Second thought, haha.
Hey, shout out to Jay-Z right there.
But both of those parties, in a way, are kind of wrong. I guess I'm a centrist on this particular issue because, as you said, if
nobody's
you put all
infallible.
your eggs in one basket, this person dies, you can have massive problems. Yugoslavia is a primary example of Tito dying and everything going to shit. Or you can have the opposite, where you never want to actually fully follow a specific individual for practical reasons, and then you just have continuous infighting inside of the larger superstructure. So try to balance out. Basically, have respect for those who have done more for the movement than others have, but also understand that time progresses and new ideas come to light, and sometimes people should, through their own volition, step down, etc., etc. So it's always in the middle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Nobody's infallible. Everyone should be challenged, and I think that that's something that communists today really need to learn from. We need to engage in criticism and self-criticism, and that not to be egotistical about this kind of stuff and say, oh well, I'm the king, I'm infallible, I'm great. No, people should criticize us. We should be subject to criticism and scrutiny at all times, because ultimately everybody gains from that. From good faith, comradely criticism. I mean, I don't mean obviously bad faith bullshit, people talking shit about you or whatever. I mean people actually saying, hey, look, I noticed that you did this thing and I think that you could do it better. That's criticism. That's healthy criticism and self-criticism, and we can all improve by doing that, And unfortunately, that's quite difficult coming from liberal societies and capitalist societies, where we are very individualistic and we take any criticisms as being an attack on ourselves, as our personalities and so on. And we don't really see ourselves as part of these collectives. And to say someone is wrong about something, it's very difficult for someone to step up and say, I was wrong, I made a mistake. And often within liberal capitalist society, we're punished for saying that. We're punished for saying that you were wrong. It's like, oh, well, he said he was wrong about this, so he might be wrong about that. And, is this guy really trustworthy? Because, maybe he's going to change his mind about this or about that. And that's something that I've experienced as well. Like, people don't like it when you come out, especially like publicly, come forward and say, actually, guys, I think I was wrong about this. And,
I don't understand how much balls that takes. Whatever.
People really do not like that, that's going to happen like time and time again in the future. Like, this is one of the key things that we understand with dialectics. Everything is interconnected. Everything is constantly in motion and constantly changing as a result of the struggle and unity of opposites within and between everything. We're always changing. As a result of this conversation, being part of this conversation and listening to this conversation, every one of us is changed fundamentally forever as a result of that. The conservative mindset is that things go in circles. People fundamentally stay the same. People never change, so on and so forth. Marxists have a fundamentally different worldview. We understand that everybody is constantly changing. Things are always developing quantitatively and then qualitatively. Okay, so we're always going to change, and we're always going to be updating and developing and refining. And in the right conditions, things might become their opposites. In the given conditions, someone who might have been a revolutionary at one point might become a reactionary at a later point. You have, for example, young people who might be great revolutionary communists, and then at a later stage in their life, they may become full-on fucking fascists or reactionaries of some stripe. You know, many socialists,
Exactly.
many people who would have called themselves socialists in their youth, then became fascists when they were a little bit older. For example, the quintessential fascist, of course, Mussolini. Of course, he was never really taken seriously as a socialist. Everyone kind of looked at him suspiciously anyway. But, you know, I mean, he's kind of one of the fathers of fascism, and he fundamentally rooted himself in socialism. And then, as a result, of course, of this struggle, this unity and struggle of opposites within him, the basis was there for reactionary thought, and that actually happened, and he did. In the given conditions, the condition that he was in at that particular moment in time, he became a full-on counter-revolutionary, reactionary fascist, the arch-fascist. You know, the complete opposite to what he had been before, or at least what he had appeared to be before. And that happens all the time. You see this often. You see this very often where revolutionary organizations in Ireland, we always have this. We have the same thing happening again and again and again with Republican organizations, militant revolutionary Republican organizations. Where at one point in time they have their guns in their hands and they're fighting against imperialism and against colonialism, and they're pledging solidarity to the international working class and the oppressed masses of the world. And then 20 years later, they're in the parliament and they're making deals with international capitalist imperialists. And we've seen this time and time again. For example, at the start, the formation of the Free State, the organization, one of the biggest parties, Fianna Fáil, was considered the political wing of the IRA, the anti-treaty IRA, the revolutionary IRA, which stood by the Irish Republic at that time, at least it appeared to. Then very quickly it found itself, within 10 to 20 years, it found itself pledging allegiance to the King of England at that time. And yeah, literally pledging allegiance to the King of England, you know, and it became this centre-right, very conservative organisation, and moved very quickly from the anti-imperialist left to the not necessarily pro-imperialist, but at least imperialist collaborationist right. We're seeing the same thing happening with Sinn Féin right now, unfortunately, and it's very sad to see. We saw it happen very recently, where for example, I think it was just in the last couple of weeks actually, the organisation Sinn Féin, where once they took a principled stand against what in Ireland what are called the special criminal courts, which are jurylist fascist courts, totally anti-democratic. They've been criticised by Amnesty International and all kinds of human rights observers all over the world as being basically a fascistic institution. Jurylist courts where you can convict someone and sentence them to 5 years in prison based on the word of a police officer, a member of An Garda Síochána. And Sinn Féin, as in the 70s and the 80s, they would have been a principled anti-imperialist revolutionary organisation that was fighting for national liberation and socialist revolution in Ireland. And of course, then as time went on, they became more and more reformist, and now they're super popular. They're the most popular party in Ireland. And unfortunately, just in the last couple of weeks, I believe, they decided, actually, those courts, maybe in some cases they're okay. They used to take a really strong, firm stand against them because they know that those courts have historically been used against revolutionaries who wanted to fight for national liberation and socialism. You know, Irish Republicans. They took a really strong stand against them historically. And that was one of the things that people really gave them a lot of credit for. Even when they were being a little bit more reformist or a little bit more centrist or even rightist in this or that way, people would still say, you know, good job. At least you're taking a firm stand against these fascistic special criminal courts in 26 counties, Republic of Ireland, or the 6 counties, the Diplock courts that they have up there. But of course, they've abandoned those principles right now. They've gone from being a revolutionary force to being a reactionary force, which is very, very disappointing because there's so many people in that organisation and so many supporters of that organisation who believe them to be the people who will harbour in a 32 county working class Republic of Ireland. Do you know what I mean? People really believed in them, and for so long people did believe in them and do believe in them to this day, and they've got so much support in the working class, and they're just betraying us, completely betraying their mass support base that they have. So it's hugely disappointing to see, but that's dialectics. That is dialectics. Everyone is constantly changing and constantly in development, and that's just how it is, you know. So anyway, there's another.
That's just how it is.
That's just how it is. Things always be changing, and that's just a scientific fact of life, unfortunately. Oh,
You know what another scientific fact of life is? I
yes.
need to pour myself another cup. I'll be right back. I'm really sorry.
Oh, cool. I'll also just while you're on there, I'll just say that the CPI Maoist Communist Party of India Maoist, yeah, they're one of the leading lights of the world revolution right now. Communist Party of India Maoist is a fantastic, hugely progressive revolutionary force. All solidarity and support to the comrades there. I absolutely adore them. I would absolutely recommend everybody studies them. In terms of the international revolutionary or international communist movement, the ICM, the Revolutionary Communist Movement, they would be probably on they would lean left in terms of the line struggle that's going on there. And I don't know if they would say they uphold Gonzalo Todd or anything like that, but they're a hugely progressive force, and they're on the right side of history, and all solidarity and support to CPI Maoist. They're an absolutely inspiring force in the world, and we could all learn from them, you know. Carlos Herrera asks, Paul, regarding critique, what do you make of debate bro culture, recent inroads into online Marxist discourse? Debate bro culture is something that seems to have developed out of university academic debate culture that exists there. It's external to Marxism. It's very much just an import from liberalism. It's very individualistically focused. I don't think there's really much. I don't think there's any reason why serious Marxists should engage in this kind of debate bro culture. It's very much an import from liberalism. I don't think there's anything to be gained from debates because, as we know, debates are not actually helping people get towards the truth and developing knowledge from the perspective of Marxism, you know, a Marxist theory of knowledge, as outlined by Chairman Mao and others. You know, I don't think it actually helps us get closer to the truth in that regard, because, as we know, anyone who's engaged in debate clubs or any of these sorts of places, and by the way, I haven't actually been in these clubs. I've just watched and studied them from afar, but they often have like little challenges and tournaments where you'll have to argue for this or that topic, and it's not about the topic that they even agree with themselves. They're just arguing for the sake of arguing, and it's just this intellectual jousting and this kind of masturbation, basically, this intellectual masturbation that happens. And ultimately, it's more about egos and it's more about winning the debate than it is about arriving at the correct position for our class, the proletariat, the international proletariat. And so I'd be deeply suspicious and skeptical of anybody who engages in that kind of stuff. I understand that there are some principal comrades who have been in those kinds of situations at some times, but as a general rule, if your whole thing is debate me, bro, I just wouldn't have time for that. I'd have no interest in it. It doesn't actually help us get anywhere, because the point of a debate is to win. It is not to actually contribute to the knowledge of our class. It is not actually to help us figure out the correct line. Now, when I say that, I'm talking specifically about online debates or public debates. Of course, debate happens, argument happens within revolutionary movements. That needs to happen, but it's not performative. You're not performing for an audience, you know? You're not trying to win. You know, you can have arguments and these kinds of constructive criticism, or sometimes it's not, it doesn't even feel like constructive criticism. Sometimes it feels very antagonistic within organizations and within revolutionary movements. And you need to do that. You know, sometimes you need to be smacked across the head and told to wake up and shaken out of whatever bourgeois illusion that you may have, whatever it might be. Sometimes you do need that kind of slap in the face. But the problem is that arriving at knowledge is perverted by the fact that you have an audience and there's an incentive for you to perform for that audience and to build up your clout and get more clout. And ultimately, I just don't think that this is the correct way that communists should be engaging in the development of our revolutionary movements and our ideas as a class collectively. You know, I just don't think it's helpful. I think it's very, very destructive and damaging. And anybody who's taken that path, we've seen it's been very, very destructive. It hasn't been constructive. And yeah, I don't think that that's the way forward. Hugo, did you want to come in? Any thoughts on that? Carlos asked, regarding critique, what do you make of debate bro culture and recent inroads into online Marxist discourse?
Very little to add to what you said, except when you concentrate your online content, especially when streaming on debating, it is the end of the day, a pragmatic, easy way to have a constant influx of content, and that's it.
Mm.
You can call up a person, and for 3 hours you can create 3 hours worth of content, which, depending on your following, if it's larger, can make you insane amounts of money.
Oh yeah.
And you can just do that. Like the second you feel like you don't have any bright ideas on uh, what to react to, or what like original content to talk about on your stream, you call up a person for a debate, and that's just free content. It's just the marketization of revolutionary thought, as they say.
Yeah, commodifying.
And sure, it can be, yeah, it can be fun to watch or whatever. It could be fun to do. Uh, and you're okay, you're fine. Okay, fucking do it. Just don't say that this is like the proper approach towards building towards cleaning out the illogical ways one should think about the socialist movement. And you should not think that through debates and through debate culture you can actually come to a closer understanding of the system itself or the ideology itself. No, it's just a way to make content at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And as long as you look at it that way, like some fun stuff to see two guys screaming at each other, yeah, fine, do it. Yeah, whatever. But you're not going to learn more about yourself. And those two people debating are not going to learn more about themselves, because, as Paul said, they are already going into the debate with the idea that they will win and that they have to win. And a debate online, a public debate, is very different than a debate between two people at home or at a bar or at a restaurant. Because what's the main difference? Yes, they have a massive audience looking at them. And the audience between person A and person B is rooting for person A and person B.
Mm.
And even if you see the other person winning or making a good point, or arguably saying something that you've never even heard before, which can introduce more factors into your vision of the argument itself, you cannot admit to this. You cannot
Yeah.
agree to this, because then you would look like a fucking pussy ass idiot in
Yep.
front of your audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a sort of toxic snake that eats its own tail.
Exactly.
And
And this isn't how communists should act. You know, communists need to be humble, and we need to have humility. You know, we need to be able to just say, okay, thank you for the criticism. I was wrong. I didn't realize that, actually. I didn't realize that was that you know, you presented me with this new information, and I didn't realize that before. So thank you for presenting me with that. And now we both have different perspectives, and we can go away and think about that, and we can come to different perspectives. No, this whole culture encourages liberalism. You know, it's one thing if somebody said at the start of their streams where they're doing like these debates and stuff like that, if they said, guys, this is just entertainment, don't take it seriously, we're just fucking around, that'd be grand, that'd be no problem. Okay, whatever, they would say that it's entertainment and you wouldn't take it seriously. But ultimately it encourages this liberal individualism and this egotism, and we've seen how harmful this actually is to our movement. This is actually, it's one of the topics that we kind of had as a backup to discuss today. I see someone has asked about the recent discourse on socialist American patriotism, and I don't actually even want to talk about socialist American patriotism. What I want to talk about is the result that that's had, and looking at what's happened as a result of those conversations and those debates, looking at how fractured and divided everyone has become over this fucking topic, and people being obsessed with their fucking hero and their fucking leader and whoever it might be. And it's all about egos. It's not even about, you know, what's actually correct. It's total individualism. It's total liberal. It's not communism, you know. This is not how communists engage with each other. And if you want to actually engage in line struggle and criticism and critique, there are avenues for doing that. But a fucking live stream on Twitch is not the place for engaging in international communist line struggle. You know, you do that in journals. You know, you write it up, you think about it, you have sources, you know, you have quotations, you actually put things in context. You don't just pull 3 words from Marx or from Chairman Mao out of context and then say, okay, well that's it, that's the end of it. No, you actually you have to engage in it. You have to do proper critiques, you know, and unfortunately. People are very confused about these things, and I do worry that this culture is encouraging individualism and egotism, and is actually quite anti-communist in its essence, if not its form. You know, so I maybe take a slightly harder line approach than you do on this, Hugo, because I can really see the negative impact this has had on at least the online left wing sort of communist-ish space over the past maybe 6 months. I don't know, maybe if you had any thoughts on that, but there definitely does seem to me to be a huge division now that didn't exist 6 months ago, and I think that this has been a part of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. Like, I mean, it's at this point, it's a topic that's been discussed like 5,000 times, just on a different subject line. Like, what do you mean by this? Now it's about can you be an American patriot and a socialist? A few months ago, it was about something else. A few months ago, it was about something else. A few months before then, it was about something. It's these people that like. I think this is like the terminally online brain doing this to a lot of people, because they go online, right, and they say something. They pick a side.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even know that they're picking a side, but they have a hot take, and then people start shitting on their hot take, right? But also a lot of people start supporting their hot take. So they feel like, again, I'm going back to what I talked about previously, about having to support the part of their audience which is supporting their hot take. Because they feel like, okay, I have to be right. So many people are telling me that I'm right.
I can never be wrong.
And all
ever.
of these, yeah, and all of these people have to be wrong if they're telling me that I'm wrong. So you cement yourself deeper and deeper in your opinion, and opposition cements itself deeper and deeper in their opinion. And at one moment, it stops being an exchange of arguments and just literally becomes two groups of people offending each other and shouting at each other.
Yeah.
And then it starts moving into because quite literally the argument gets very boring for the audience. People start shitting on the other party because they are stupid in this other sphere or this sphere or that other sphere. They don't know how many holes a woman has or whatever. And
yeah,
and
Jesus.
it's and
That's
and
the
then
explicit.
you go into all this shit, right?
It's ridiculous.
Like that's for example, that's the funny part. But the less funny part is, I don't know. I think it was the same person who doesn't know how many holes a woman has that called out. Okay, how do I put this without being too direct? They called out a person living in the developing world
Luna.
as someone who cannot use the fact that they're from the developing world because they're dating a white dude. Like that cancels out their fucking
Go back to your white master or whatever was said.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Yeah,
that was unbelievable. Yeah.
But yeah, they end up moving into using
this shit, and then
different shit because they cannot interact with the original point. And the same happens from the other side or whatever. I'm not just pinpointing one.
Well,
side.
I have to say, I do want to be honest there. I know there's a temptation to appeal to moderation. You know, we all feel this. We all have this appeal to moderation. There's two sides, and you know we need to be moderate, and we need to say there's one side that's right, or excuse me, there's not that there's one side that is right and one side that is wrong. There's both sides are making good points, and the correct answer is somewhere in the middle. But look, the thing is that, you know, if somebody says I don't know, the sky is red, and someone says that the sky is blue, you know, one of them is correct and one of them is not correct, and like an appeal to the
Oh,
middle
no,
would
of
be like, oh, the
course,
sky
I
is
agree.
purple, and or you
No,
could
no,
use
no,
other
I
colors.
completely agree. I
Sometimes
completely agree.
there are some things that are correct and
You
some
have
things that
this
are
discussion.
incorrect. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
like,
but you should have. But that should be the exchange. I think he's blue. I think he's red, and then you enter the discussion on what the fucking color this fucking dude is, and you don't say whatever the discussion is, whatever the direction the discussion goes. I think this dude is fucking blue, and I will think this dude is blue no matter what the other side says.
mm.
That's how online conversations tend to go. That was my whole point.
And
Not
then
that
it's like you've arrived
moderation
at the
should be fun.
conclusion. Yeah, and it's like you've got the conclusion. Now I'm going to work back from that conclusion and find justification for that conclusion. You know, rather than someone saying, "Oh, well, actually, have you considered this other point?" And let's talk about that. And then I don't know. There's just this whole kind of strange, weird macho thing has really taken hold in the last few months, and that's been something. You know, everybody's just getting called soy this or beta that or whatever, and that's like what you have Marxists
That's
calling
your
each other
opinion because
soy
you're a
cooks. And
soy beta cuck,
maybe that's
bitch.
because I'm just a soy
Ah, the
beta
cuck,
cook or whatever, but
dude.
I don't know.
No, dude. The two of us have been calling each other soy beta cucks like a year and a half ago.
Well,
It
we're
just
fucking around
became
though.
the
We're not like
fucking.
using that as like an
Yeah,
actual.
exactly. But that's exactly what I wanted to say. But now people are starting to take it fucking seriously for some reason.
Yeah, it's that
Uh,
there's something wrong. There's something that's gone wrong here, and you know we need to be quite clear about that. That this isn't how communists behave. This isn't how communists engage in criticism and self criticism. This is not how a communist behaves. And if anyone was actually a member of, if any of these people were actually in communist organizations, they would know that this is not how criticism and self criticism actually takes place within these organizations. This is just not how a communist behaves. Do you know what I mean? So this really be very skeptical of anybody who's carrying out this kind of behavior, and just look, guys, join communist organizations. You'll know very quickly how you should behave as communists. This isn't it. Calling people like soy boys, or you know, telling people to I don't know, go back to their, I don't know. I think the term was like white master or something like that, or whatever. Just that's this ain't it, chief, as they say. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway. So, all right, Hugo, we're about 2 hours in. I think we'll probably have to wrap this up in the next few minutes. I don't want to. We have a habit and a tendency of going on for like 4 hours. I think it's better to keep it to less than 2.5 hours. What do you think? Does that sound good to you?
whatever you say, it's your channel, brother.
Oh,
No worries.
it's basically our channel. You know how it is, man. You're the fucking you're one of the main. You're one of our main men. You know. All right, let's just go for like another maybe 15, 20 minutes or something like that, and have some fun and take it
Okay,
easy,
sounds good.
and then we'll wrap up. Okay, cool. So here's a nice fun one. Meowistana asks, "What are your favorite alcoholic beverages?" Both of us. That's for Paul and Hugo. I adore Desperado. Desperado is my favorite fucking drink. It's the beer Desperado. It's that kind
You're a
of
sick
tequila
fuck.
beer. I know, I'm a weirdo.
You
I
drink
adore it.
Desperado. You put
It's the
pineapple on
best.
pizza.
Degenerate
what's
Irish
next.
race.
Absolutely. You're
We're lesser.
definitely not the proper Aryan like myself who drinks schnapps and what the fuck do Germans even drink? My fucking wife's titty milk. But yeah, because at one point, if you follow Nazi doctrine, like you will become racist towards animals as well, and you will not be able to drink cow milk. You will have to constantly be impregnating your wife in order to get some cheese out of her titty milk.
It's a logical
Uh,
conclusion
and
of this
ironically, I'm pretty
reactionary
sure
behavior.
somewhere in Manhattan, somebody is selling like a vegan titty milk cheese. Like, that's actually not a bad idea.
Christ.
That couldn't be some very good fucking money
Maybe
for the
it tastes good. I
revolution,
don't
of
know.
course.
I'm judging it before I tasted it, so I can't really. I shouldn't.
Yeah, probably.
No,
I
no.
mean,
What did I say?
when you think about it, it's more natural than drinking from the titty of this big smelly fucking animal.
Yeah, no
Drinking from the
investigation, the
titty
right
of a
speak.
woman.
So I suppose, yeah,
Yeah,
why not?
true. Like I love thinking of the first human who like just
Milk the
soy
cow.
fucking milk the cow. But no, I actually had an answer. A biologist friend of mine told me. It was, even back then, you give birth and you don't have enough nutrients because the fucked up world you're living in, so you don't get enough to eat, and you can't make milk for your baby. So that's probably the first time it occurred to sneak in and still steal milk from animals to get to your child, for the child to be able to eat slash drink this, because they obviously can't chew when they're a tiny toddler. But my favorite alcoholic beverage is rakia, which is a Slavic high alcohol density drink created out of basically fermented fruits of all different types. That's my favorite. Second favorite is vodka, obviously.
Based.
Mid-range Soviet vodka called Stolichnaya that is actually very mainstream even in the West. It was the first Soviet product ever sold in the US, actually, in exchange for Coke, I believe, being sold over in the
Sellouts.
USSR. And and yes, the Americans for adopting Russian vodka. But yeah,
Communist Americans.
third, I really like cognac. I like white wine. I love whiskey. I like good whiskey, like proper Irish. There we go, whiskey,
You like
especially
Jameson?
the tiny islands you have. Dude, yeah, but Jameson is kind of like whiskey here. Like you go to any club or bar and you don't say like what you want to drink. You just say whiskey, right? You go like, can I have a big whiskey, a double whiskey or whatever, and they will pour you Jameson. So
That's
yes, I
great. What's
always
the
like
problem?
Jameson.
What's the problem?
Nothing. But it's
What's the
when
problem?
there's something that you've been drinking forever, right? So they had like a limited white cask thing with Jameson, which was absolutely insane. Like 4 or 5 months ago, it's so fucking tasty. But yeah, so yeah, that's my list. Top five:
Epic.
rakia, vodka, white wine, cognac, whiskey, and so I
Well,
like Glenfiddich. Is that Irish? Glenfiddich. Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich. I
Those
don't know
fucking
about that.
idiots.
I don't know about
But
that.
no, isn't it Glenfiddich? I Google how do you pronounce
Ugh.
Glenfiddich, and it's Glenfiddich.
We have this
So I was like, okay, it
glottal.
might be Irish.
We have this.
It's from Dufftown. Dufftown. Where the fuck is Dufftown?
Where the fuck's stuff down? I don't know about
It's Scotch. It's Scotch.
that. Oh,
It's
okay.
Scotch.
Scottish. Yeah, no, they're a different breed.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about that. I'm
Oh,
afraid. Sorry,
Jesus.
I'm very fucking. I am so shit when it comes to like I literally I eat the same food every day. I drink the same drink every day. There's no diversity at all in my diet. I literally I'm just like the two things I drink are Rachmaninoff vodka, the little cheapest vodka I can find, Rachmaninoff vodka, and I love it, and Desperado, tequila beer, and I love it. I think it's great. I get the bottom.
Ireland is really expensive, man. Like,
Yeah,
Ireland is really
it
expensive.
is.
But that makes no sense. I mean, it does. Okay, it's an island. It's expensive to get things to it, so that's going to increase price.
Oh,
Okay,
that's what semi-colonialism and
let's.
colonialism will do to you.
Yeah,
Right.
but let's not
Make
even
it a
engage. Let's not even
tax haven.
engage in the Marxist analysis of the situation. Just stop your Marxist brain. Like, why would it be more expensive? A bottle of vodka. Why would it be more expensive in Ireland than in France?
More
Which
money
I'm
to make.
guessing it probably is.
Higher minimum wage, slightly higher minimum wage. I can't like you can't look at this outside of the context of a Marxist context. You can't look at the fact that Irish people are paying €8,900 for the EU banking bailout, and German people are paying €400, and Spanish people are paying €40. You can't. You can't.
Okay, so what the fuck is that about?
What the fuck
is that
it's
about?
super exploitation is what it's about, Hugo. It's about the fact that within the EU there's both a core and a periphery that is exploited by the core, even within the EU itself. And that's how Ireland functions. Ireland is, and there's a few other countries, of course, like Lithuania, Poland, all these Eastern European countries that function in a very similar way, that are just super exploited by the core countries, the core imperialist powers, of course, being Germany, France, and a couple others. It's super exploitation is what it is.
It is. Yeah.
8,000. Can you imagine that? The banking bailout, €8,900. That's the more than anyone else is paying. And for that banking bailout that happened in 2010, right? From the banking crisis, you recall from 2007, 2008, every person in Ireland has to pay nearly €9,000 paying that off. The second highest rate being paid is by Germany, which is €400. Average.
But why is the difference so big? Like,
why? And why? Because the debt that's being paid off is primarily coming from German banks. So why the fuck are Irish people paying $9,000?
Why specifically is the Irish? Why specifically is the Irish piece so large?
Exactly. Why?
But why? Why? No, seriously, why? Like, why isn't, for
Because
example, the
super
French one the biggest,
exploitation.
or the Spanish
Because
one
why?
the biggest,
Why?
or the
Exactly, because
Polish
super
one the biggest?
exploitation. Because they make deals and they know that they can shake more money out of us. This is how
Ah, there
semi-colonialism
we go.
works.
Yes, it is super exploitation, but like they could exploit other ones that are in the periphery. But they ended up like the one, basically what I'm saying. Why is Ireland the one paying the biggest part of the bill? Because there's also other EU countries that are in the periphery.
Thing
So
is,
what
there's also
happened that led? Yeah.
well, the thing is that like we do have a fairly high minimum wage, which makes these kinds of things possible. Although just barely for most people, it makes it possible because like if you look at all of the economic indicators for Ireland, because Ireland functions as a tax haven for international capital, uh, the, we're doing very, very well on a per capita basis as a result of being a tax haven. During the if you look at for example, during the COVID pandemic, Ireland recorded massive growth in terms of GDP. Meanwhile, the average Irish citizen is suffering more than ever, having a worse and worse time. Everything's just getting worse and worse. Nobody has jobs. Everybody's fucked up. Nobody can see, nobody can get jobs. Just everything's fucked. Everything is just horrific. Meanwhile, GDP growth is huge. It's soaring. Why? Because there's massive pharmaceutical industries and companies housed here. Pfizer and so on are housed here. That's where their base of operations is here.
Oh shit!
And
Really? I
yes,
mean, I knew about Google, but even
Google,
Pfizer. Fuck.
but then of course you got the big four tech companies as well. You got Facebook. You got Amazon. You got Google as well, of course. Yeah, you got these
So it's
guys.
no longer Facebook; it's Meta.
Oh, excuse me, the metaverse. Yeah, how could I forget? And these things, and so they skew it. They completely skew it. So because they're making in these super profits, they're raking in super profits, looting, they're looting the people all over the world, and they're filtering it through our system. Not only looting people of the world, but also looting, and exploiting and plundering the people of Ireland and the resources of Ireland. And there's all kinds of examples of that. I don't need to get into it right now, but they are skewing all of the statistics with regard to Ireland, and it makes it seem like we've got the money to pay for these things, like we can afford to do these things, but of course we can't. None of us can. Every one of us is suffering. Young people are migrating from Ireland, away from Ireland in their masses because they can't afford to live here. Just if anyone's interested in this stuff, just go into Google and type in what is the average rent in Dublin city centre right now for an apartment, for a normal place to live. Okay, and you'll see that the average rent is over €2,000 per month. Meanwhile,
Jesus, what the fuck?
yes, and the average minimum wage, excuse me, not the
You'll get a
average wage.
house where I live. Dude, just come over here, man. I'll help
We
you out.
got it. We
Just
got it.
literally come over here.
The minimum wage, meanwhile, is about 1,000. I think it's 1,700 and something. It's less than 1,800. So the minimum wage doesn't get you an apartment, a place to live. People end up house sharing with loads and loads of people. Like in some cases, they're like sharing rooms with like 3 or 4 other people just to survive in here. Because Ireland is so centralized as well in Dublin. People will say, "Oh, well, why don't you just move out to the countryside or something?" Like you can't move out to the countryside because you can't work anywhere else. All of the jobs are concentrated in Dublin. Man, it's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. The government has just fucked everybody in Ireland so badly. Just in order to facilitate international capitalist imperialist exploitation and plunder of this country and of the global proletariat. We all got screwed by these guys. The fucking reactionary free state government that exists right now. We're all fucked by them as a result. And those kinds of statistics and facts, like the GDP and stuff like that, skew things and makes it look like Ireland is a prosperous, first world, thriving economy and all this sort of stuff when it's not. It's not at all. It's only benefiting a very particular class of people, the international imperialists, and as well as their comprador class lackeys who administer this state here in the 26 counties of Ireland. And that's not even getting into the colonised and occupied 6 counties in the north of Ireland. So, yeah.
Do you think this could potentially lead to? I mean, I know we talked about it previously, and while the EU is an imperialist superstructure,
Oh,
etc., etc., maybe the idea of like directly leaving it is not necessarily the brightest one on the planet. But do you think especially when it's led by reactionaries and when the leaving is in the interests of the bourgeois instead of the actual working class, the way it just happened with England. But and hopefully just England and everybody else can kind of save their skin a bit. But do you think there is potential for in the future of not even just reactionaries, but like other forces inside of Ireland to
Hmm.
start considering leaving the EU because of how
Oh,
Ireland has obviously been treated
yeah.
as a member of the EU?
No, actually, there's a very small percentage of reactionaries who want to leave the EU on reactionary bases, like immigration. You know, oh, these immigrants coming in, blah blah blah, all this shit. You know, um, that's it. That's most people. Nobody really agrees with that. Nobody actually supports that. There's no mass support for that in Ireland. The people who want to leave the EU are the revolutionaries, the communists, the socialists, the Republicans. You know, that's it, and we are gaining more and more support towards that end. More and more people are realizing that actually this is not and has never been a good deal for us. You see, historically, people saw the EU as a way of breaking free from British imperialism. You know, people sort of thought, well, you know, we can join the EU and then we can live a good life.
Yeah, and I
Like,
don't blame them.
I mean,
At
yeah,
all.
800 years of colonial exploitation and plunder and genocide and starvation and famine and displacement and dispossession and all this horrific
And
stuff,
there's
and you
these
can get
guys that
it.
are telling you, "Oh, you're welcome. You're gonna be
Yeah,
one of us,
you,
one of
you're gonna
that
live
internationalist project. You know,
exactly.
we're
You're
gonna
gonna live
protect you
like
from your imperialist overlords,
exactly.
etc., etc."
You're gonna live like a middle class person in Paris or London or Berlin or I don't know, one of these, or you know, Amsterdam, or you know, any of these places that people see as very European or whatever. You're gonna have that kind of life, and of course that was a load of shite. That was a load of bollocks. It didn't actually pan out that way. But yeah, that was how it was seen by a lot on particularly on the center left, not the hard left, not the radicals, not the Republicans and the socialists and communists. Of course, the socialists and communists and Republicans all saw right through this from the beginning. They all understood what this was because they had a more advanced understanding of imperialism and how that functions. But yeah, I do see a growing anti-EU sentiment from a left-wing perspective, not from a right-wing perspective, which I think is quite important. You know,
Very interesting.
we don't have the reactionary the reactionaries in Ireland have no
But how
support
big is it?
whatsoever
How big is it? What would you say? Does it have
for the left or the right.
actual potential of entering the mainstream? Well, you said the left one is
Uh,
like it actually exists. The right
yes,
wing perspective to leaving the EU is almost so minuscule that
the
it's
right
not even a
wing
factor.
the right wing
Yeah,
perspective is a
but
joke. The
but
right
no,
wing it's actually imported
yeah,
from
but fuck that. I'm asking like how big is the chance of this moving into like the mainstream left, if I can call it that?
Oh, well, actually, it's pretty big in the mainstream left. Even the center left, like Sinn Féin and stuff like that, they would consider themselves.
Oh
They
wow,
would be
really?
they're not anti-EU as such. They're not like saying let's leave. They would be what they would call
Eurosceptics? They don't
soft.
consider themselves that.
They call themselves soft
Mhm.
Eurosceptics. Yeah, soft Eurosceptics is what they would say. Do you know what I
But they
mean? So
actually talk about it openly. That's super
yeah,
interesting.
somewhat. They're shying away as they move more and more towards the right. They're dropping that, but they used to be very anti-EU and historically anti-EEC. You know, the European Economic Community. But nowadays they've moved more towards the right. So it's dropping from the agenda. You know, they're moving more towards that sort of centrist liberal perspective that really caters to bourgeois internationalism rather than proletarian internationalism, which is what we uphold, of course. You know. And of course, the EU does offer a bourgeois internationalism rather than a proletarian internationalism, and that's it's internationalism for capitalists, internationalist cooperation of the capitalist imperialists and their lackeys. You know what I mean? So that's people can get confused when they don't see that class basis. They can get confused and mistake that for proletarian internationalism. But as we understand, internationalism always has a class character, you know, and it has to be proletarian internationalism. Otherwise,
True, true.
otherwise it's just a case of because as we've seen with the EU, it's just a case of the bourgeois internationalists. They just want to expand capital. They just want to you just have Irish capitalists who want to get cheap labor, and so they know that they can hire workers from Poland to come in and get the job done for cheaper than Irish workers here, which is it's the exact phenomenon that Karl Marx was writing about when he talked about the Irish people in England, in the 1870s, because there was a mass influx of Irish workers to England after the Great Famine in the mid 1850s, and they were driving down the wages. We were driving down the wages in England as a result of that, and of course that was great for the capitalists. So what is the revolutionary communist response to this? It's not to say let's tighten the border controls of the bourgeois state. No, it's to support socialist revolution at home, to abolish the conditions which have given rise to the situation whereby people need to migrate from their homes in order to live an okay quality of life. So loads of people from Poland right now need to leave their homes. They can't carve out a good life where they're from, unfortunately, in their homes as a result of decimation from imperialist forces, and so they feel that they need to move abroad. So we need to abolish the conditions that give rise to that, which of course means working class revolution. Do you know what I mean? And so supporting that, and so Marx had that key insight, in the 1870s, and of course he held to that. He invited the Fenians to the First International and supported the Republican prisoners and all of these kinds of things. As a result of that, you know what I mean? So we always need to be careful. Like whenever we talk about these questions of like immigration, migration, and nationalism and internationalism, we always need to look at this from the proletarian internationalist outlook, rather than falling into the trap of like the bourgeois liberal or the bourgeois conservative or bourgeois reactionary. Do you know what I mean? So that's
extremely true. Extremely true.
It's really important.
I do think.
Excuse me.
Please go on.
Oh,
no, go on.
Well, I do think that a movement that promotes the self-determination of Ireland, it's not going to come through reform. It's not going to be a reformist movement like in the UK where it just goes through Parliament. It's going to come from the revolutionary left. It's not going to be.
You think so?
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Don't you think that maybe
reform.
because
No way.
people are getting softer and softer, quote unquote, and I know it sound like a reactionary.
No,
right
not in
now,
Ireland. They're not. No.
But
no, people are hardening up around.
But as we enter later and later stages of capitalism, as English people themselves and their ideals turn more and more away from ideas of England as an empire and more towards where can I buy better Supreme jackets. They're gonna care less and less about the English position in Ireland, right? I don't know if you get what I'm.
I know what you mean. Yeah. People say
not even the argument. I'm saying like literally the English the English population itself is getting more international. It's also getting more consumerist, and it's getting at the end of the day a bit less ultra nationalistic, not less reactionary, but just ultra less. England is empire.
Yeah.
So maybe that could allow for a big enough population in England itself to exist, which would not necessarily give a fuck, honestly, about Ireland becoming whole again.
Well, I mean, the average person.
This is just me as a complete foreigner from like 3,000 kilometers away, just saying my opinion. Maybe this is complete bullshit. Please do tell me.
No, of course. No, it's an important point, and there's a lot of people in Ireland as well. I feel quite similarly. The average working person in England doesn't give a fuck. They don't want the English ruling class to have control over the 6 counties, to be colonially occupying the 6 counties in the north of Ireland, nor do they want semi-colonial exploitation of the 26 counties of Ireland. They don't want that. They don't want Irish government buildings to be owned, the land on which they're built in particular, to be owned by the British state. They don't want that. They don't want these harbours like Corklow Harbour. No, excuse me, not Corklow Harbour. Rosslare Harbour to be owned by the British state under statute. They don't want that. They don't want the continued ground rent system, the feudal ground rent system, feudal relations of production. They don't want that continued ownership over around. The average working person doesn't want that. They don't care about that stuff. They don't want that. They just want to have a good, decent life and work and get on with their lives and have fun. They don't want any of that stuff. It's not about them. It's about the English ruling classes. And unfortunately, as we can see, there's been a return to empire. In fact, people often have this idea that a reunited Ireland is inevitable. It's just going to happen through the ballot box. It'll be okay, but it's going to happen through. Well,
But it's gonna happen.
it is going to happen, but people have been misled into believing that it's going to happen through a reunification referendum. But of course, ultimately, that's not going to happen unless the ruling class agree to it happening. But even then, even if that does happen, you also need to understand the terms on which that might happen, and the terms on which that might happen will be within the terms of a gerrymandered 6-county state, which is illegitimate and has been illegitimate from its foundation. The core of the point is that all of the people of Ireland, okay, in 1918, so this is 103 years ago, we had the first and only democratic expression of the people of Ireland, and we voted in for the Irish Republic as a 32-county united people, and we voted in the Irish Republic. We had a democratic program, and it was this People's Republic. It was a socialistic republic. It was oriented towards the international working classes and the proletarian movement, and it was incredibly progressive. The British imposed that border. Nobody in the 6 counties of the north of Ireland actually wanted that. Nobody in the 26 counties wanted that. The only reason they cordoned off that particular section, and by the way, it's called Northern Ireland, and I want to say, and I want to stress this point, it's not even the north of Ireland. The northernmost point of Ireland belongs to Southern Ireland. Literally, it's part of the Republic of Ireland. The northernmost tip of Ireland actually is part of the territory of the Republic of Ireland. What we call Southern Ireland. So it doesn't even make sense in that way. It's not part of the province. There's no reason for this other than the fact that they had a loyalist base there where they could continue to have continual control over indefinitely, based on settler colonialism that occurred in the 1600s, which was the Ulster Plantation. And the Ulster Plantation was, of course, a displacement of the native population. They brought people over from England and primarily from Scotland, mostly, which is why, by the way, if you go to Northern Ireland, what's called Northern Ireland, which we would call the occupied 6 counties, if you go there, you'll notice that they have a very different accent everywhere else in the country. That's because that accent comes from Scotland. That's an import from Scotland, and the way that it interacted, of course, with the native accent a little bit, but that's why it sounds quite similar to the Scottish accent, because it's people coming over from Scotland directly. Settler colonizers who come over. In Ireland, we wouldn't generally call them settler colonizers, we'd call them planters, because they came over on the plantations, And the reason they put in those plantations was because for 400 years, England had been trying to colonize Ireland. From the 1100s to the 1500s to the 1600s. England had been trying to colonize Ireland, and they kept failing because the people who would go over to Ireland, they would basically become Irish. They loved the culture, they'd start speaking the language, and they just failed. The English ruling class didn't want the English people to become Irish. They wanted the Irish people to become English. So the only way they could guarantee that was if they actually got their own people from England and from Scotland and from Britain, what would later be called Britain and then later again the United Kingdom. If they took those people and sent them over, people who they knew would be loyal to the crown, the British crown, and they kicked the Irish natives off the land, and they gave that land to them. And then they put in, of course, these penal laws, these incredibly horrific laws of displacement, and which prevented any kind of inheritance to Catholics. And you can Google penal laws Ireland, and you can find all kinds of stuff about that and how this occurred. But that's why the 6 counties exists as it is. And there is an argument today that, okay, well, that's going to fade away because demographics are changing, because the old people who were loyal to colonialism, to imperialism, to the British state, they're kind of, not say that they're dying out.
Yeah, I would make that argument. Yeah, for example, I would make that argument. Maybe
yes,
it's an ignorant.
Most people do.
I would make that one. Yeah,
most people do, because if you look at the demographics, right? If you actually look at the demographics, you'll see that the population who are from this grouping of people, the descendants of settler colonialism, the Unionists, the Loyalists, and so on, they actually are diminishing proportionately. The Catholics are overtaking them, the natives are overtaking them, and it's proposed that by the mid 2020s, so in the next 4 or 5 years, there's going to be more native Irish people, more Irish Catholics than there are Irish Protestants or Unionists, Loyalists, and so on. Settlers. There's going to be more at that stage. But the thing is that more Catholics does not necessarily mean that they're actually going to want to vote for reunification, that they don't actually correlate, one to one. Like, okay, you're a Catholic, you're going to vote for this, whatever. So they don't actually correlate one to one. That's not actually true. More and more people are joining an organization called Alliance, which is kind of centrist. It's kind of soft unionist, but it's kind of centrist. They're not really demanding for reunification, and they just kind of see themselves as European and stuff. And it's a very petty bourgeois outlook. But the fundamental issue is that if we even entertain the idea that there can be a question of self-determination for the 6 counties, that legitimizes the 6-county colonial occupation. That legitimizes it. That says this is a separate state. That says that there should be a vote on the basis of this 6-county statelet that was created by the British, not the Irish north of the border nor south of the border. This is entirely a creation of the British Empire in 1922. They created it. In Ireland, we don't call this the Irish border. We call this the British border, okay? If there was ever to be a vote on reunification, that would need to occur on an all-Ireland basis across 32 counties of this country. That is the only way there can be a democratic mandate, one way or the other. The last time we had a democratic expression that really captured the democratic will of the people of Ireland was 1918, and we voted for this 32 county socialistic republic. That was the only time since the 1100s that the Irish people have actually engaged in an act of self-determination. The only time. And of course that was crushed by the force of counter-revolution that came afterwards, following 1919 and into 1922. But to have a vote, like even say 2 separate votes, like one in the Republic of Ireland and one in the 6 counties in Northern Ireland, to have 2 separate votes, that fundamentally legitimizes colonial rule. That accepts the division, that accepts us as a divided nation when we're not a divided nation. We are one nation, and we've always been one nation, one 32 county nation connected to 32 counties of Ireland. And if there was to be any kind of vote, it would need to be on a 32 county basis. And always, there has never been a point in Irish history where the support hasn't been for unity of those 32 counties. Do you know what I mean? So if there was a vote, you could call a vote across 32 counties tomorrow and you'd get over 80% of the vote would say, yes, let's reunify. Let's do it that way. So, in other words, if we are going to accept this, if we are going to accept a vote on reunification from the 6 counties based on their experience, then we're fundamentally accepting the terms of our oppressors. Why should we accept the terms of our oppressors? Why should the Irish nation concede that territory and that terrain to the oppressors? Why should we put that up to a vote? Why should our self-determination even be subject to a vote? That's saying that our self-determination should be subject to the whims of this gerrymandered constituency that the British state has cordoned off specifically in order to maintain its colonial legitimacy as a result of its colonial plantations from the 1600s. And the descendants from that who stole the land from the native people. Why? Why should we accept that? How can we legitimize that? You know what I mean? So these are the questions that Republicans have to deal with every day. And it's always a very hard question. And it's always a very hard conversation to have because people just think, oh, well, we can just democratically vote it in. We can do that and, it'll be fine. But you need to understand what it is that you're legitimizing when you're doing that. You're putting the self-determination of an entire nation into the hands of one of these votes. In fact, in 1972, there was a vote for reunification, okay, within the 6 counties of so-called Northern Ireland. Because this was during what was called, internationally what's known as the Troubles, a really intensified moment of the armed campaign and so on, and there was Bloody Sunday, and the British state had slaughtered, had massacred civil rights protesters, unarmed civil rights protesters, peaceful protesters, and so on. It was a very tense moment. What happened then? What did the Republicans say? What was the Republican response to that? What was the socialist response, the communist response to that? The communists and Republicans and socialists said, don't vote. Don't fucking vote. Abstain. Burn the ballot boxes, in other words. Don't. Because this is not a question that's up for debate. Colonialism is not up for debate. This, you need to understand, this is a nation that has been colonized for over 800 years. We are not going to negotiate with our colonial oppressors.
Exactly.
We are not going to negotiate. This is the US loves to say, we don't
But
negotiate with terrorists. We
no,
don't
but now,
negotiate with
yeah,
these
but now,
state terrorists from England who've been
but now we're gonna
terrorizing us for nearly a
jump in.
millennium. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There was this discussion because I think you will give an eloquent and excellent answer to this, because a lot of people are scared. For example, uh, how do I phrase this? Okay, so a lot of by anti-colonial movements,
Oh, yeah.
for one very specific reason. The question is, what do you do with the local
Yes.
population
Yeah.
of the other ethnicity once the government structures, corporate structures, etc., of the imperialist superpower have been kicked out? So
Yes.
now we have. So the question is, now you have just removed uh, the government of England from Northern Ireland or South Ireland or whatever.
Mm.
By the way, that was a big thing I just learned, that it's actually South, not North, which makes no sense to actually call it Northern. But yeah,
Yeah, it's actually
when you
just
think about it,
northeast. It's just 6
fucking
counties in the northeast.
mentally
It's not.
ill. But yeah, yeah,
It's
the fucking
ridiculous.
smooth brain shit. Almost use the R word. That's how stupid it is. But um, so what do you do with all the fucking Angloids there, for example?
Well,
What does one do?
you might be interested to know that actually the Republican movement has always, since its inception, since its very inception, the Republican movement has always been a movement that unites both the native and the settler, both the colonizer and the colonized together. And in fact, the father of Irish republicanism, Wolfe Tone, was a Protestant. He was from that, intellectual Protestant tradition. He was from the colonizers. you know and what he said was that we need to have Catholic, Protestant, and dissenter unite. And when he said dissenter, he obviously meant Presbyterians and so on and so forth. So different religions, Jewish people, all kinds of people, different people. He said everyone unite against colonialism. All people unite. So now I have to, of course, add on to that the movement took root amongst the native peoples, and that's where it got its core support. The 6 counties, unfortunately, the northern 6 counties, was literally defined as they used to pride themselves and call themselves a Protestant state for a Protestant people. It was very ethno-nationalist, and if you listen to the loyalists, the people who are loyal to the United Kingdom, the paramilitary forces, the extremists, they're fascists. I mean, there's no way of putting about it. They're class collaborationists, and they're defenders of imperialism. They're 100% fascists in every way, shape, and form. And they were extremely sectarian. And in fact, if you listen to like the UDA and the UVF and all these organizations down the years, especially the UDA, they literally talked about ethnic genocide. They wanted to wipe out the native population. Like there's no two ways about it. They were fully advocating ethnic genocide, ethnic cleansing, as we've come to know it. So that was absolutely horrific. Thankfully, the Republican movement, the anti-colonial movement in Ireland, has never ever sought that. The Republican movement in Ireland, the anti-colonial left-wing nationalist movement, has always had an inclusive definition and understanding of nationalism, of the Irish nation and what it is. We understand it as a set of social relations. It's not really the blood and soil bullshit. It's a set of social relations. Oh, you're engaged in Ireland, okay, and it's been very, very inclusive from the get-go. And if people who are the descendants of settler colonialism want to be a part of that progressive movement against the ruling classes, against the English ruling class, they're more than welcome. They can be a part of it. They are 100% welcome. No doubt about it. No ifs, buts, maybes. Since the very start of the movement, since Wolfe Tone himself, he was saying Catholic, Protestant, dissenter, unite. Okay? Always. It has always been an inclusive movement. It has always been an egalitarian movement. Always. It has never ever sought to replicate the oppression that was inflicted upon the native population, upon the settler colonizers. It has never sought to replicate that. It has only sought to end that. Okay, that is all it has ever sought, all it ever will seek to do. That's all it ever seeks. Okay, that's it. We just want to end the oppression. We don't want to reverse the roles. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, there is kind of, I know there's an anxiety on behalf of people who are the descendants of settler colonialism, who sort of think, well, oh shit, we did this fucked up stuff to you guys, and now you're going to do that to us. Nah, it's never been like that. We've never wanted to do that. We never have. There have been, of course, incidents. There have been incidents where, unfortunately, yeah, violence has happened and self-defense has happened, and yeah, stuff like that has happened before, but that's never been part of the movement. That's been individual acts and so on and so forth. You know, so there's always going to be oppressed natives who sort of seek to take out their anger and frustration and their sense of injustice and indignation on the most immediate target they can find, and that's unfortunate. But what I will say is that, particularly with the Irish Republican movement anyway, and it's different in every anti-colonial movement, of course. You know, if you look at, for example, Algeria, well, there was some horrific stuff that happened to the French colonizers there, you know, and I mean, you can't. It's hard to blame the Algerians given what had come before that. You know, it's you can't. I can't sit here and condemn them. You know, not at all, because you know what the French did to them was by order of magnitude worse than what the Algerians did in their own liberation struggle. But no, in Ireland, the anti-colonial struggle has always been very much focused on mixing everybody together and eliminating these boundaries rather than reversing the position of oppressor and oppressed, actually just abolishing oppression completely. That's always been what we've tried to do, and that's always what we do try to do to this day. Do you know what I mean?
I believe you should clip this, what you just talked about, like this whole segment. I hope you remember it today or whatever, in case you're buzzed like me. But for example, I would clip this and I would post this as this is the answer to the question of what happens to the local population, of quote unquote settlers once the imperialist state has been vanquished and removed from the local territory. Because without debate for the last, I don't know, 3-4 months, there has been quite a lot of interactions between people who are pro self-determination, Marxist, Leninist self-determination, and people who are very much against it, under the argument that I just gave you. I didn't give it to you as a believer of it, but as someone who has heard the argument and wanted you to respond to it. And your answer is arguably the most concise and like most direct one I've heard up until now on the topic. So people just throw around like academic terms and make it far more complicated than it needs to be, and they actually sometimes even dive very not deep, but like they go like, why are you even questioning this? We have eaten the boot for so long. We get to have some revenge if we fucking want to. We're not going to, but we get to do it, which also again scares a lot of people even. Which yes, I agree. No, fuck you. You're scared. Okay, fuck you. We're not gonna ask you about what we're supposed to do when we're liberating our own people from the case of Ireland, almost a millennia of oppression.
Yeah.
But which me as a Balkan Slav knows what it feels like.
Oh
just not even closest to you guys, but under the Ottomans, we were like 550 plus years, which is again not close to you guys.
No, it is. It is.
But yeah, I mean, it's a very. All I'm saying is it's a very good answer that you gave. It's very concise, and it
Like a comrade.
be used as a very good, like, accessible point for people to understand, to look at, to listen to, and not be as scared of anti-imperialist action as they are now.
Hugo, thank you very much, then. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say, and if I can remember this tomorrow, I'll definitely take your advice. Maybe shoot me a message if you don't see any little clip appearing.
Because a lot of people are like, okay, what would the Palestinians do to the Jews in Israel? What would the South African
Yeah,
Africans do
yeah.
to the
Assimilate them.
white
It's
South
easy.
Africans?
Just
What would, etc., etc. You
just
know,
become part of the
and
culture. It's fine.
sure, there might be a few Irish dudes that would be like, nah, they should be fucking put in ovens,
Mm.
and a few African South Africans that say, oh, the whites should be put in ovens, and a few Palestinians that are saying the fucking same thing. But I'm
Yeah, that's
100% sure that's not the majority.
no, no. It doesn't represent. It definitely doesn't represent on a political level. That wouldn't represent the goals of any serious anti-colonial movement. I mean, maybe the subjective individual would feel that way as a result of seeing the suppression, but no, they definitely wouldn't. Uh,
Because they
when
get
they
very
think about it,
very
they
often
wouldn't.
confused because there are wars between two states that are fighting over a given territory
Mm.
in which the population is kind of relatively mixed. Actually, the Balkans could be a good example, the post-Yugoslav wars,
Mm.
and whichever side would win in those interactions would quite literally expel the other ethnicity from their territory, which is kind of what happens. Kind of Serbia lost in most territories, and except in Bosnia, they were kind of completely kicked out in Kosovo and in Croatia, not to the full extent, but to a very massive extent. And I'm saying this is a inter-ethnic person
Mm.
from this region.
Mm.
I don't
Mm.
have like anything to win or lose by saying this.
Yeah.
But this happened because those were bourgeois wars led by monetary interests of the local political leadership of those countries, which understood that through motivating people on the basis of ethnic hatred, they would be able to preserve power for as long of a period of time as possible. And that's why those
Mm.
exoduses
Yeah.
happened, not because they were expelling the imperialist and what the fuck do they call them in the states? The fucking colonizers. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, all these movements, always, 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 the key is it needs to be led and spearheaded by the most revolutionary class, that is the proletariat. The oppressed masses, the exploited masses, they need to be the spearheads of these movements. There may be some room for some space for other progressive elements of other classes and so on, but absolutely they need to be spearheaded with a proletarian internationalist perspective, and that's how we avoid falling into those traps and pitfalls of the past.
Shut the fuck up now. One more subscriber for Marxist Paul Live. We have 500 subs. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary individuals. Let's get it to 500 fucking
Hugo,
subs, you beautiful, beautiful motherfuckers. I just
thank you.
noticed. Come on, one
I
more,
gotta
one
go.
more. I am
I gotta
selling
go.
my kidney. I'm selling my kidney.
Oh,
You
it's
gotta go
so
piss.
nice of you.
Go piss.
I gotta piss, but we also gotta wrap up. It's coming up to 2 hours and
Yes,
50
yes, yes.
minutes. We gotta wrap up. Hugo, tell me, is there anything else you wanted to say or to address or to discuss before we
I am
finished?
not stopping until you get to 500 subs. No, you gotta have
Oh,
500
but I
subs
gotta
before I leave.
piss. I gotta
I
piss.
keep resending them. Okay, okay. I'll be quick. I'll be quick. It's been a pleasure as always. Long live the Irish Revolution.
Yo.
I love you guys. This chat has always been very friendly and very kind to me. And see you soon. Probably in around a month when we do the 4 people stream, which should be very cool. And
It's gonna be so much fun.
yeah, this was very nice as always. Hope the live channel grows as quickly as possible. I tried to do my part. I shared it wherever I could share it. Thank you for Hannah
Legend.
for sharing it on the Discord as well. I forgot about the Discord, but my lovely admin Hannah, who's fucking phenomenal, shared it over there as well and tagged me. And
Yo.
yeah,
Thank you,
this
Hannah.
was this was a great time. This was a great time.
Hugo, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. You are a fucking legend. We need to get back into doing this regularly. Not to the point of it being an obligation ever. It's always take it or leave
No,
it.
I
It's
would
always
love
fun.
to. I would always do it. Like, what the fuck was I gonna be doing right now? Yes, I would be working because I'm actually in the working hours.
Me too.
And fuck them. Like, I owe them like 6 reports and for advertising project analyses. Suck my cock, whatever words, corporate shit. Suck my fucking dick if you're listening. But this was a much better way to spend my time. And yeah, thank you for everybody that was here, especially to those commenting. And make your fucking what do you
Chat
call it?
box. It's fucking chat box.
No, not the chat box. Make the Streamlabs so you can
Fuck
afford a
Streamlabs.
pizza with pineapples. No, not fuck
So we can get the
Streamlabs.
super chats.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
maybe if I can
so
get a
you
few
could get
subscribers, then we can use the YouTube super chat function again. Let's see how things go. Hugo,
exactly.
Hugo, you're a legend. I adore you. Thank you so much for coming back on. We have to do this again. I can't wait until December when we get to do this again.
505 subscribers, bitch. Shut the fuck up. 505 fucking subscribers, motherfucker.
Yes.
There we go.
Legendary.
There we go.
Fucking Hugo.
Suck dicks, get money, fuck bitches. That's how we do it. Fuck yeah. Very good.
Oh, thank you so much. I love it. And I love you all. Thank you so much in the chat. I really appreciate you being here. Quick shout out. You'll have a stroke reading this. Southern Comrade, Samuel Wilkins, D. Toldrin, Jess Doya, Lewis Yates, Anarcho Stalinists. Absolutely great to see you. Bruno Santos, Adelaide H, Carlos Herrera. Thank you very much. And to everyone else I missed there, thank you for being here. Major Hydraulic, great to see you. Red Salute from Ireland. Cheers, everybody. Hugo, I adore you. I want to have your babies. I'm jealous of your girlfriend. Don't tell my wife. I will see you guys again soon. Take care, everybody. Cheers. Slán go fóill, and enjoy the rest of the week.